Squeak, squeak, crunch. Horse hooves trod upon a road layered in blackened charcoal, producing a brittle rhythm as three knights rode at a measured pace, their gazes drawn toward a sun-drenched estate nestled in the distance. By the roadside stood a weathered wooden sign, its paint faded and slightly tilted. In bold strokes it read, Wuyao, Snake Manor. Beneath that, smaller letters warned, Beware the venomous black-waist serpents nearby. And beside the text, for those who couldn't read, a charcoal drawing of a coiled black snake, crudely marked with a large X. The Wuyao Snake Manor is one of the largest among the 19 estates in the glowing valley, said the gruff knight to the left, a weather-beaten man with a bristled beard and yellowed teeth. He lazily flicked his riding crop and added, 20,000 hectares, 580 serf households, around 3,500 people total. The middle knight, a strikingly handsome youth with pale blonde hair, arched brows, and clear eyes, responded with a soft smile. Quite the responsibility, Mr. Charles. You flatter me, Sir Russell, Charles replied with a chuckle. His lordship granting you this manor as your fief shows immense trust. And don't worry, beyond the estate lies a stretch of cavern lands. The serfs there act as a natural moat. Defenses are practically built in. The third rider, a square-jawed knight with a stoic face, muttered, The freemen of Echo Water Cavern aren't exactly reliable. That's what we have you for, Eric, Charles said with a grin. As Russell's guardian knight leader, it falls to you to keep the manor secure. I'll handle it, Eric said curtly. Russell urged his mount forward with a gentle nudge. His black stallion surged ahead, hooves striking the charcoal path with increasing speed as wind rushed past his ears. The air was still bitter with the tail end of winter. Ice crystals stung his cheeks. Yet the rising fighting spirit within him burned hotter than the cold could reach. Fighting spirit. Even after a week of wielding it, Russell still marveled at its power. The manor came into full view now, its fields flanking both banks of the glowing river. Bent-back serfs worked the land. Simple, flat-roofed dwellings dotted the landscape, none rising beyond 2 stories. Chickens clucked in the distance. Dogs barked. Pat-pat, pat-pat. The horses stepped onto cobbled stones near the riverside. Not going in for a look? Charles asked. No need. The handover hasn't happened yet. I'll have all the time I need afterward, Russell replied. His coming-of-age ceremony had just passed. Wuyao Snake Manor was not yet officially his. He still awaited the servants, funds, and supplies that would allow him to properly settle in. This will be your empire's foundation, Charles said, gesturing to a modest 2-story stone building across the river. That could be your castle. Care to name it? Russell shook his head. It's just a building, not a castle. I'll pass. Charles laughed knowingly. Don't dismiss it. Every noble starts small. If you strive for a decade and prove yourself in battle, you could rise to baron. Eric gave a rare nod of agreement. True. Russell offered a polite smile. Then Charles's voice took a conspiratorial tone. Though if you want a faster route, went over Mr. Ross. Seal a pact with him, and you might skip the battles entirely. Russell's expression cooled. Let's not speak of that again. Charles gave a sheepish grin. Of course, of course. The river's thawing late this year, anyway. By now, it should be roaring, but look at it. Barely a trickle. The topic shifted. The trio trotted along the riverside, taking in the land. By late afternoon, Russell turned his horse. Let's head back. His black steed sprang into motion, thundering down the road. Charles watched him go, then muttered to Eric, Told you. Pact with Ross is a shortcut. Achievements take years. A dragon's favor? Days. Eric's reply was quiet but firm. That's the Baron's family matter, not ours. With that, he rode off after Russell. Charles sighed. They're too noble for their own good. They don't see it. Russell's rise is our rise. He spurred his horse and followed. Ahead, Russell rode fast, but his thoughts raced faster. This was no ordinary world. A realm of snow demons and lava-fed oases. Of knights and mystical battle spirits. Of elves, sentient mushrooms, phantom beasts. And above all, dragons. Dragons ruled all. And Mr. Ross, he wasn't just a noble. He was a dragon of the glowing mushrooms family. Mr. Ross was a dragon, but not the towering, winged colossus of myth. He was a bipedal drake, a clay dragon. Not made of clay, no, but his very presence transformed the land. Wherever he dwelled, his dragon breath and ancient bloodline infused the soil with latent energy. In time, this magic seeped deep, crystallizing into clay or veins. Clay metal. Russell had once found it strange too. But in this world, clay was indeed a kind of metal, one that, when fired, could harden like steel and carry the strength of enchantments. Ross the clay dragon had served the Fluorescent Fungi family for over 60 years. Bound by a contract forged with the first Baron Yogwang, he had guarded the glowing valley ever since. 3 entire clay veins had formed under his watch. From them, the family created exquisite ceramics, both practical and enchanted, that sold not only across the Shadow Flame Grand Duchy, but beyond its borders. Yet Mr. Ross was far more than an economic asset. He was a guardian. In the bitter winters when snow demons descended from the north, it was Ross's dragon breath that turned them to shards of ice and ash. Without him, the glowing valley and the barony would have long since fallen. Thankfully, dragons like Ross lived long. 300 years, some even 5. Ross wasn't yet 70. He would protect the Fluorescent Fungi line for generations more. But not for Russell. On the road back to Fluorescent Castle, Russell had made peace with a bitter truth. He would never contract with Mr. Ross. It wasn't humility, nor submission to his elder brother Roland's future as Baron. It was fear, because Ross might know. He might know, I don't belong to this world. Dragons had senses that pierced the veil of existence. If only Ross couldn't speak. Russell remembered that first terrifying day. He'd been crossing a street back on Earth, eating Dream Dragon ice cream, when a dump truck, like some God-sent executioner, ran him down. Then, darkness. Then, this world. He awoke in a fragile, dying body, one that had failed to bloom Dookie and foolishly tried to force it, dying in the process. But that failure became Russell's opportunity. The Dookie bud bloomed the moment his soul took root, granting him instant qualification as a knight. But Ross knew. Perched atop the castle's highest tower, the dragon had stared at him for 15 minutes straight, unmoving, unblinking. Russell had never felt more exposed in his life. If not for the ancient bloodline contract restraining Ross, Russell suspected he would have been incinerated on the spot. Since then, he'd resolved to stay far away. And fate had helped. At his coming-of-age ceremony, his father Baron Roman granted him land and a knighthood. He would focus on developing his fief. Quietly, respectfully. Let my brother bond with the dragon. Let me grow from the soil. At the town's crossroads, the 3 riders parted. This is where we part, Mr. Charles, Mr. Eric, Russell said, raising a hand in farewell. One road led to the noisy town, the other up a hill to the Fluorescent Castle, stronghold of his family. As its heir, the Baron lived apart from the common folk, surrounded by stone and enchantment. Charles tipped his hat with an exaggerated grin. Lord Russell, I look forward to your success. Eric merely grunted, Farewell, Lord. As Russell rode off toward the castle, Charles glanced at Eric. The sun's still up. Join me for a drink. No, you're no fun. Charles caught up. Have you noticed how Russell's changed lately? He's more composed, more confident. He should be, Eric replied flatly. He's grown. Charles scratched his stubble. It's more than that. He feels different. He has Dookie now. Knights are like steel once their Dookie blooms. With a wistful sigh, Charles looked toward the sky. A true knight rides a dragon. Eric gave him a withering look. They couldn't even claim a phantom beast without earning distinction. All such creatures were owned by noble families. Without war, without glory, no mount, no title, no dreams. Meanwhile, Russell reached the outer gates of Fluorescent Castle. Its stone walls rose high and heavy, each block reinforced with magic. Ceramic tiles gleamed silver along the outer shell, reflecting the sun like mirrors. A soldier in leather armor stood guard. He struck his fist to his chest in salute. Russell passed under the arched gate, the hooves of his horse clattering across the tiled walkway. The air here was quiet, regal, intact. No war had ever reached the heart of the glowing valley. Even the snow demons had never breached this far. The marks upon the stone were not from war, but from Ross's claws. A shadow fell across him. Chirp, chirp. He looked up. The clay dragon. Ross swept over the castle like a thundercloud. His wingspan eclipsed the sun. His claws hooked onto the tower's edge. He folded his wings, crouched like a statue of doom, watching. The scales on his body glistened dark red, so dark they looked black. His vertical slit eyes moved, scanning the valley. They paused on Russell. A soft scoff, if a dragon could scoff, left his nostrils, exhaling 2 streams of dark red breath that steamed in the cold air. Then he turned his gaze away. Russell said nothing. He looked down instead, opening his palm. A faint red mark shimmered on his skin, like a living rune. If one looked closely, they'd see it was a slender dragon, wings outstretched, mid-flight. He clenched his fist. The mark flickered out, tiny embers floating upward like fireflies, vanishing into the sky. I have a dragon, too, but I can only ride it in my dreams.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Mr. Russell, please hand me the reins. Mr. Russell, I will remove your cloak for you. Good afternoon, Mr. Russell. The lady was just asking about you, wondering if you had returned. Along the way, the servants of Fluorescent Castle warmly welcomed him, took away Russell's horse, removed Russell's cloak, and handed him a towel to wash his face and hands. Once he entered the castle hall where the fireplace was burning, he immediately went from winter to summer. He shed the weariness of travel, regaining the radiant and handsome image of the Baron's second son. Mr. Russell, the Lord is in the upstairs study, and the lady is teaching Miss Lola accounting. The lady, upon learning of your return, asks that you visit her. Carter, the butler, holding a ring of keys, said with a proper bow near the hall corridor. In terms of etiquette, Butler Carter would never allow any discourtesy. All right, I'll be right there, Russell replied with a slight smile, naturally giving Butler Carter a slight bow in return. The extent of the smile, the angle of the bow, the force of the motion, as if trained by set square, were impeccable. That's the style of a gentleman. This is what nobility is all about. His predecessor might not have been outstanding in battle chi training, but never neglected lessons in nobility's etiquette. With Russell embracing it fully, he was equally adept. As Russell climbed to the second floor, Butler Carter's smile remained undiminished, a genuine one like that of an elderly father watching his child grow up. He had never married, serving the Fluorescent Fungi family since childhood. The young masters and mistresses were like his own children. He watched them grow and had long considered Fluorescent Castle his home. After Russell's figure had disappeared around the corner of the staircase, he then drew back his smile, reverting to the dignified castle steward, holding a ring of keys, inspecting every corner in the castle and the working servants. "Wipe up there, don't leave dust in high places," he said to a male servant polishing a column. The servant immediately responded, "Yes, Butler Carter." Make way, make way." A young maid, carrying a pail of water, hurried past at the corner of the corridor. Upon seeing Butler Carter, she got a fright and almost spilled the water. Frowning, Butler Carter scolded, "How many times have I told you? Once you start working at Fluorescent Castle, you need to correct all your bad habits. Daisy, this is Fluorescent Castle, the most prestigious place in all of Glowing Valley. Stop being so clumsy." "I'm sorry, Butler Carter, I will definitely improve," Daisy said in a small voice, shrinking back. She then quickly sidestepped around Butler Carter. Seeing this, Butler Carter shook his head. The quality of a new maid was concerning. On the second floor, entering the ladies' room, Russell saw his mother instructing his sister on how to check and record accounts. "Mr. Russell." The serving maids at the side promptly greeted him. Russell nodded at them and then turned to his mother. "Butler Carter said you were looking for me. Do you need something? Come here, sit down, and we'll talk." "All right." Russell sat in the nearby chair, and a maid brought over some tea. His sister Lola, just 11 years old, smiled at Russell with her mouth closed, recently having lost one of her sharp front teeth, which made her reluctant to smile openly. Russell returned the smile. His mother, looking at her young adult son, said, "Your father and I have discussed a few times. Regarding your proposal to move to Wu Yao Snake Manor, we think it can wait, and first, we should properly staff the manor's annex with servants and your personal attendants. The place isn't too far, yet not close either. It requires 2 hours by horse. I can commute daily, consider it battle chi training," Russell offered. Moving out of Fluorescent Castle was his firm goal. Not to mention that he felt uneasy during family gatherings. Just being under Mr. Ross's scrutiny was uncomfortable enough. "Are you in such a rush to leave home?" his mother asked, a tinge of sorrow in her voice. Seeing Russell a loss for words, his mother suddenly smiled. "Well, children do grow up and have to leave home eventually. If you want to move there to live, then go ahead. Okay. Come back for lunch every day." "Yes." Seeing some wrinkles on his mother's face, Russell nodded solemnly. Roland, his eldest brother, was serving in the Shadow Flame Castle's Dragon Blood Knights. His eldest sister, Roland, was already married, and at home, it was just him and his younger sister, Lola. And now, he too was leaving home. For his mother, Meryl Rainflower, this was indeed another heartbreaking farewell. However, as a noblewoman, she knew that an eaglet must endure stormy weather to grow into an eagle, so she never obstructed Russell's decision. For a while, mother and siblings talked together. Soon, the butler Carter entered. "Madam, Mr. Russell, Miss Lola, dinner is served." "What about the Baron?" Meryl asked. "I have already informed his lordship. He will be down shortly." "What on earth is in that study that attracts him to stay there all day?" Meryl complained as she stood up. "Mr. Carter, don't tell me he actually gets into those hefty volumes. I don't believe it for a second." Butler Carter showed a polite smile without responding. The dining room, also on the second floor, had no electric lights, but the walls were fitted with many wall lamps. Embedded within these lamps were luminous gems, emitting a soft and enduring light, both brightening the room and being gentle on the eyes. Outside, the evening had already turned to dusk. Looking out from the dining room window, one could see a tower close by, with Roast the Clay Dragon perched atop its roof. It could maintain that posture and sleep throughout the night. The Baron had not yet arrived when 2 unexpected guests made their way into the dining room. One was a palm-sized, green, chubby bird with patterns similar to glowing mushrooms. The other was a cartoon-like little doll the size of a palm, with transparent wings on its back and a cluster of blue flowers blooming above its head. At the moment, the little doll was pointing at the green, chubby bird, squeezing out tears while babbling incoherently. "Lori, you've bullied Tess again," Meryl scolded with a stern face. The green, chubby bird named Lori, a fluorescent fungi, family surname, derived mushroom bird, is a magical mushroom-type little sprite. And the bullied little doll Tess was a rain-lasting flower sprite, likewise a magical plant-type little sprite. They were beings as miraculous as the bipedal flying dragon. Born amid plants and mushrooms, they could plant their respective magic potions anytime, providing the Baron's family with a continuous magic power output. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Lori the fluorescent fungus mushroom bird landed on Meryl's shoulder, chirping away in what seemed to be a rebuttal. Tess, the rain-lasting flower sprite, landed on Meryl's other shoulder, her chubby little hand on her hip, the other pointing at the mushroom bird Lori, crying out loudly. Unintelligible. Russell didn't understand the language of sprites. In fact, no one could understand the language of sprites, as their cries were not a language. He marveled inwardly at the squabbling Lori and Tess. Even though he had come to accept the existence of dragons and elves in this world, no matter how many times he saw these small, magical creatures, he would still be in awe of their beauty. Dragons produced metals and gems. Elves yielded magic potions. All manner of plant magic potions, mushroom magic potions. It's a pity the family only has 2 little sprites. Father has only promised to give me 3 spirit insects. If I want my own little sprites, I'll have to cultivate them myself, Russell regretted. Little sprites evolve from spirit insects. But for spirit insects to evolve into little sprites, the chance was very slim. The fluorescent fungi family of this generation had only managed to cultivate one mushroom-type sprite, Lori. As for Tess, she was part of the dowry when Meryl married into the fluorescent fungi family. I could hear Lori bullying Tess outside the door, said a serious and steady voice, followed by a middling-looking middle-aged nobleman stepping into the room. His flaxen hair was slightly curly, and his features unremarkable. Yet, his upright figure, dressed in an appropriate home tailcoat, had a certain attractive, gentlemanly charm. This was the master of the entire fluorescent castle, the third-generation Baron Yogwang, Roman Yugwang's son. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The mushroom bird Lori immediately flew off Meryl's shoulder and landed on Baron Roman's, casting a disdainful glance at Tess before tilting its head to preen its glossy green feathers. Tess stood on Meryl's shoulder, still with one hand on her hip and the other pointing at Lori, squawking away. "Quiet down, little ones," the Baron scolded. "They are so rowdy. Roman, you really should separate them," Meryl said with a chuckle. The personal servant following the Baron quickly pulled out a chair from the dining table, and the Baron sat down, saying, "No use. They always find each other and start quarreling. It's simply that there are too few little sprites in the castle." Carter, the butler, bowed and asked, "My lord, my lady, may we start serving the meal?" Baron Roman nodded. "Please, Carter." Lola covered her mouth and said, "Father, you could put Lori and Tess in my room. I won't mind their noise." Meryl smiled and stroked Lola's hair. "My Lola, children can't keep sprites." "Why?" Lola didn't understand. "Because you haven't cultivated battle chi yet," Baron Roman said. "Only with battle chi can you provide the potential for sprites and endow the force that allows the magic potion to grow." "Can Russell keep sprites?" Lola asked again. Only then did Baron Roman glance at his second son, not answering Lola's naive question, but instead asking Russell, "A Yugwangsan mushroom bug, a rainflower spirit insect, and a parsley spirit insect, no problem, right?" Russell, not daring to hope for more, nodded, "No problem." A single spirit insect could influence magic potion over an area of about 10 hectares, which is equivalent to 150 acres. Together, 3 spirit insects could cultivate magic potion for 450 acres of land, enough to sustain him and his retinue of knights in the future at Wuyao Snake Manor. Wuyao Snake Manor is well situated, though occasionally snow ghosts and ghost beasts cross the line. Echo Water River Cavern will block them for you, preventing any large-scale conflicts. I understand. More than the snow ghosts and the ghost beasts, you need to be wary of the cavern freemen. As a noble lord with fiefs, you must screen them strictly. Never let these freemen disrupt the order of your land for the sake of population. Got it. The Baron briefly shared some advice about the work a lord should do, all based on personal experience and insight. Meryl listened to the conversation between father and son with a smile while dining. She had borne 2 sons, the eldest, Roland, inheriting Baron Roman's talents for cultivation, already a great knight at a young age. The younger, Russell, though less gifted, had inherited the beauty of the Rainflower family, and was her pride as well. The servants brought dish after dish to the table. In fact, the meals in the castle weren't that diverse, only 5 or 6 dishes for dinner. But because of the separate plate system, each person would have 5 or 6 plates in front of them, requiring many servants to attend to the meal. Russell was distractedly multitasking. Filling his stomach was his primary concern, but of course, heeding the Baron's guidance was equally important. It concerned his future. Baron Roman was not just his father, but also his lord. Roland will soon retire from the Dragon Blood Knights, and Shadowflame Castle hopes our family can send another heir to serve in the Dragon Blood Knights. Baron Roman suddenly remarked about another matter. "Russell, would you like to go? Serve in the Dragon Blood Knights?" Russell frowned, but quickly he relaxed his brow and calmly responded, "I do not plan to serve in the Dragon Blood Knights." Baron Roman wasn't surprised, simply asking, "Give me a reason." "A reason?" Russell had a sound reason. The Dragon Blood Knights were the most elite of the Shadow Flame Grand Duchy's regiments, but also the most dangerous, fighting against real snow demons. As a person who favored peace, he didn't want to go, but he couldn't very well say that. In the world of noble honor, avoiding battle was a great disgrace. So he found another reason. My brother is with the Dragon Blood Knights, able to be close to the monarch, but with the monarch now crowned, my going to the Dragon Blood Knights has lost its significance. Better to cultivate battle chi in my own land and strive to train a knight regiment early, to follow in your footsteps, father, and establish great achievements. Meryl didn't want her son to be too far from home, so she agreed, saying, yes, the Duke has already ascended to the throne, and Roland has already established a good relationship with him, so there's no need for Russell to go there anymore. The Duke of Shadowflame is the monarch of the entire country, as well as Baron Yogwang's lord. As the heir to Baron Yogwang, it was natural to curry favor with this young monarch and establish a good personal relationship. Roland had done well. Therefore, Mr. Luoman did not insist and nodded in agreement, accepting the statement from his second son, Russell. Then, starting tomorrow, recruit retainers and servants for managing Weow Snake Manor, declared the Baron, turning his head to look at the old butler Carter attending to the dinner service. Carter, I'll leave the hiring of the servants to you. Butler Carter bowed slightly. As you wish, sir. I will hire a group of excellent servants for Mr. Russell's staff. Hearing this, Russell smiled and said, thank you, Mr. Carter. Butler Carter responded, it's my duty, Mr. Russell. After a delicious, yet not quite satisfactory dinner, Russell bade his parents good night and returned to his room. His room was on the third floor of the castle. Facing northwest, the window was not particularly large. The view was obstructed by the castle's outer walls, allowing only a view of the inner lawn and the playground of the fantasy beasts. By now, it was night, and the fantasy beasts were resting. Mr. Ross must have turned in for the night as well, Russell thought, realizing that from his room, he couldn't see the tower where Roast the Clay Dragon liked to squat. His former self was quite dissatisfied with this, feeling it hindered his chances of getting closer to Mr. Ross. Riding dragons, that was every boy's dream. But the present Russell felt it was for the best to avoid being an eyesore under Mr. Ross's watchful eye and giving away his identity as a traveler from another world. Dragons? I got one too, with no nightlife to speak of, and after bathing and washing up, Russell lay down early and soon fell asleep. In a hazy, unknown amount of time, his consciousness arrived in a desolate, dim environment where he could see the silhouette of a castle, drawn as if with the dimmest of inks. There are no thick walls, no large stones, just sketch-like lines. Darkness was the prevailing theme, and silence was unaccompanied by anything else. Fluorescent Castle. This is the fluorescent castle in my dreams. Russell had long since grown accustomed to this unique dreamscape. His personal golden finger, Ga, accompanied by a crisp cry. A small creature with a bright golden glow slowly flew from the corners formed by the lines of the castle. It resembled a dragon, but was amusingly cartoonish. With a head as large as a bull's, it had horns, scales, vertical pupils, and sharp little teeth, perfectly fitting the characteristics of a dragon. Its nostrils opened and closed, emitting a faint smoke like dragon breath, but this dragon breath was even thinner than secondhand smoke, completely harmless. The most ridiculous part was its body, which was nearly as large as the head. Disproportionate torso, disproportionate wings, disproportionate limbs, and a disproportionate little tail. 4 limbs, that's a feature of great dragons. Little dream dragon, tell me, are you a great dragon? Russell asked with a smile. The little dream dragon hovered in front of him, wings flapping, its body swaying up and down. It cocked its head, seemingly puzzled by Russell's question. Russell had asked similar questions many times before, and since the little dream dragon in his dreams was a bit of a simpleton, he didn't bother to speak further. With a leap, he mounted the back of the little dream dragon. In this dream, he too was just a cartoon character. Upon mounting the little dream dragon, Russell saw the dream world before him suddenly undergo a massive change. The dark lines of the castle remained as they were, but within each corner of the castle, there arose one bright light after another. Russell was no longer surprised by this. After several nights of exploration, he had gained a clear understanding of this dream world, which he referred to as the gloomy dreamland. In his perception, the gloomy dreamland was in a superimposed state with the real world, or rather, it was like the flip side of reality, a version of the world where various interferences were filtered out through a sort of lens, leaving behind only pure magic power. And the key to activating this lens was none other than the little dream dragon beneath him, glowing with a golden light. The lights that lit up in various corners of the castle were the emissions of different magic powers. Among them, the most striking one was the huge, flame-like brightness at the top of the dimly outlined tower. It sketched out the silhouette of a bipedal flying dragon, which at that moment was sitting and sleeping like a gargoyle. Undoubtedly, this was Roast the clay dragon, manifested within the gloomy dreamland. Let's go take a look. Russell waved his small, short arms within the gloomy dreamland, which were chubby yet quite nimble, a feeling both strange and wonderful. "Caw!" The little dream dragon cried out and flapped its wings, flying towards Roast the clay dragon at roughly the pace of an adult's walk. It took a good while to get there. Hovering right in front of Roast, Russell could clearly see through the flame pattern and make out the outline formed by Roast's magic power. Fierce, mysterious, mystical. What a beautiful bipedal flying dragon, overflowing with such rich magic power. Too bad it harbors a strong hostility towards me, a traveler, and I can't ride it. Russell lamented. All extraordinary powers could be collectively termed as magic power. Whether it was the battle chi of knights, the primal force of fantasy beasts, the dragon breath of flying dragons, or even the dragon flames spat by great dragons. These forces were all different manifestations of magic power. And the most basic magic power was found within the magic potion cultivated by elves, which was the earth's power drawn and refined from the ground underfoot. Caw! Seemingly dissatisfied with Russell's praise for Roast the clay dragon, the little dream dragon turned its bull-like head 180 degrees, and with the posture of a roaring evil dragon, let out a crisp, duck-like cry towards Russell. "Ha ha! Quite the jealous type." Russell reached out his little short hand to pat the little dream dragon's big head and expressed his regret. "Too bad I can only ride you in dreams. What I really want is to ride a dragon in the real world." The little dream dragon showed it did not understand, but was still displeased. "Caw, let's move on." The duo flew back and forth in the quiet, gloomy dreamland, checking every place where the magic power glowed. Most of the lights were emitted by the knights within the castle, with varying degrees of brightness, but mostly a dim and hazy gleam. Russell himself emitted a murky gleam as well, indicating that his battle chi was weak. But there were exceptions for 3 of the knights. One lay in the castle's largest bedroom, Baron Yogwang, Roman Yugwang's son, whose emitted light was bright and stable, clearly outlining a human shape. Next to the Baron was a very dim point of light. That must be Mother's chi seed, Russell thought. It's hard for women to cultivate battle chi due to physiological differences, so his mother, Meryl, had only managed to nurture a single chi seed, which hadn't blossomed into battle chi. The chi seed was nestled in the lower abdomen area and thus didn't outline a human shape, appearing rather as a lone small point of light. Russell looked around. The room's outline was blurry, but the walls were decorated with several rather bright luminous globes. These were gemstone lamps embedded in the walls. Bipedal flying dragons could produce metals, and likewise, they could produce gems, so most metal and gemstone creations bore the power of dragon breath and lit up in the gloomy dreamland. However, depending on the concentration of magic power, the brightness of the glow varied. Only a few pieces with dense dragon breath could emit a glow that was easy to observe. No changes. It seems the Baron hasn't acquired any new treasures these past few days. Russell chuckled and rode away on the little dream dragon. Ever since he awakened the golden finger of the gloomy dreamland, he had been inspecting Fluorescent Castle every day, and he had pretty much figured out everything about the Baron's assets. How many elves there were, how many fantasy beasts, how many treasures, and where the treasures were hidden. He knew them all clearly. Of course, he had no intention of stealing. A thief within the family was still a thief, and he had no wish to become one. However, should anything unexpected happen to the castle, he felt it was his duty to protect the family's wealth, and that was all. Little dream dragon, let's fly outside. GA. The two of them flew slowly to the edge of the castle, which was the position of the outer wall. When they flew past the outer wall, they quickly encountered an invisible barrier. Still not working. It seems the gloomy dreamland has limited range, probably a circular area drawn with the place I sleep as the center, Russell thought. As to whether that's the case or not, I'll naturally find out once I move into Weow Snake Manor. GA. Are you tired? GA. All right then, let's dispel it. Russell flipped off his back, waving goodbye to the little dream dragon. GA. Although the little dream dragon was a bit silly, it had learned a bit of human communication after several nights of contact. It waved its short and thin right forelimb. Then it turned around and slowly vanished into a turning corner of the castle outlined by lines. Thereafter, the entire gloomy dreamland went completely dark. All consciousness plunged into chaos. Ding, ding, ding. Knocking sounds came from outside the room. It was Carter the butler. Good morning, Mr. Russell. It's time to wake up. Thanks, Mr. Carter. On the large bed, Russell turned over and struggled for a few seconds before reluctantly sitting up. Then he paused for a moment in a daze, laughing self-deprecatingly. I didn't expect to still have to get up early after crossing over. The Baron's family upbringing was very strict, not allowing the children to oversleep. Even though Russell had already had his coming-of-age ceremony, it was still not permitted. Fortunately, once I go to Weow Snake Manor, I can sleep until I'm fully rested every day. Thinking of this, Russell could hardly wait to gather his entourage and servants and hurry to his own domain. Even though the quality of life, there was nothing compared to Fluorescent Castle. But that was still a home belonging to him alone. A home without a mortgage and with lifelong ownership rights. And it was a home spanning 20,000 hectares, that is 200 square kilometers. The only regret was that being a lord was a lifelong title, not hereditary. Once Russell passed away, the title and the domain would be reclaimed by the lord, not passed down to his descendants. Of course, Russell didn't even have a partner yet, so he didn't need to consider such a distant future. Ding, ding, ding. The knocking came again, and several maids stood at the door with basins for washing up, toothbrushes, towels, and a whole set of clean clothes, waiting to enter. Good morning, Mr. Russell. Please come in. Russell had already got out of bed and was wearing only his undershirt. The maids entered, each performing their duties. One maid began making the bed, another tidied up the random articles on the table, and another took the basin, toothbrush, and towel to the washroom and placed the new undergarments properly. Mr. Russell, you may begin washing up now, said the lead maid with a smile. Okay. Russell let the maids bustle about. He inwardly berated the evils of nobility, then entered the washroom to brush his teeth, wash his face, and change his undergarments. When he came out of the washroom, the room had been made anew. Mr. Russell, your room has been cleaned. Thank you. The maids, carrying the dirty clothes and bed linens, left the bedroom one after another, and almost at the same time, a male servant stood at the door, knocking softly. Mr. Russell, come in. After the male servant entered, he immediately picked up the clean clothes the maids had brought in, helped Russell get dressed, and carefully fastened his belt and necktie. There were clear divisions of labor between male and female servants. In a noble household, it was absolutely forbidden to overstep boundaries. A male servant could not attend to a lady's dressing, nor could a female servant attend to a gentleman's dressing. You're getting handsomer by the day. I see the grace of the old earl in you, flattered the male servant. Russell raised an eyebrow. Have you met my grandfather? Of course, I once accompanied the old master to Bluebird Castle and saw the old earl, said the male servant, who obviously wasn't just flattering. Mr. Russell, my mother is ill, and Butler Carter is recruiting servants. I very much wish to serve you, but the personal servant Thomas was unwilling to follow Russell to Wu Yao Snake Manor. If his predecessor were still alive, this would have been a huge blow because Thomas was his personal valet. It's somewhat similar to the personal maids of the young ladies in Dream of the Red Chamber. Looking down on me, Russell thought to himself, but his face showed no expression, and he simply said, "You wish to stay and work at Fluorescent Castle?" Yes, Mr. Russell. Thomas replied nervously, knowing that if Russell insisted on taking him as a servant of the baronial family, he had no power to resist. "My mother is ill, and I hope to be nearby." "All right, I won't take you with me. To be nearby, to take care of—" "Oh, you agree?" Thomas was startled. His prepared speech suddenly stuck in his throat. Russell calmly said, "In theory, you have already sold yourself to Fluorescent Castle and shouldn't have much to do with your original family. But considering the bond between mother and child, I am still willing to accommodate your wishes. Go on, attend to your business. I will speak with Carter." Thomas hesitated. "Mr. Russell, But Russell had no intention of further indulging his thoughts. He simply adjusted the somewhat tight collar of his necktie and left the room. Descending the stairs, he happened upon Carter making his rounds in the hall, his sharp eyes scrutinizing each servant, every corner. Upon seeing Russell, Carter returned his gaze, bowed, and greeted, "Good morning, Mr. Russell." "Good morning, Mr. Carter," Russell responded, and then continued, "Thomas's mother is ill, and I would like him to stay at Fluorescent Castle, so he can be close to her. So for my personal servant, please recruit another in his stead." Upon hearing this, Carter praised him. "You are truly kind-hearted." Russell offered a slight smile. Carter continued, "I will do my best to recruit for you a personal servant who is virtuous and diligent." "Of course, I trust your judgment," replied Russell in good spirits. Thomas's reluctance hadn't upset him. On the contrary, he was quite pleased to rid himself of this personal servant, because, in the memory of his former life, Thomas was a bit too effeminate for his taste. With Russell's current disposition, he had no desire for any personal servant to attend to him. A female attendant would have been much preferable. Of course, male nobles all have personal servants, so to avoid standing out, Russell had to accept this for the moment. He could tolerate a normal personal servant, but absolutely not one that was effeminate, as it would make him feel disgusted all the time. Breakfast was buffet style. There was milk, stewed fish and rice, bread, fried eggs, bacon, and a vegetable salad. All were placed on specially designed serving dishes, kept warm over a bed of charcoal, ensuring that even if the Baron and his wife got up late, they would still have hot food. Children in the Baron's family were not allowed to sleep in, but the Baron and his wife were an exception. After cultivating battle chi, Russell's appetite had increased significantly. It wasn't until he polished off 2 large bowls of fish and egg-stewed rice and a large portion of bacon that he saw his sister Lola yawning as she came downstairs. Russell bared his teeth at her in a grin. Lola immediately covered her mouth, remembering she had lost a canine tooth. "Russell, are you going to stay at Wu Yao Snake Manor today?" Lola served herself a small portion of fish and egg-stewed rice and poured a glass of milk, content with that. "Possibly. Can I come over to see it?" That depends on what time we leave. If it's in the afternoon, then definitely not." Russell was rather fond of this gap-toothed little sister of his. Though not particularly beautiful, she was quite tranquil, unlike his sister Roland from his memories, who was not only unattractive but also prone to causing trouble. "So you're leaving in the afternoon?" "Maybe." Indeed, the Baron's efficiency in action was quite high. By noon, 4 armed knight attendants had already been gathered to pledge allegiance to Russell, and Carter the butler had been equally efficient, producing a list of 10 servants as well. "Tom, John, Jack, James, I pledge my loyalty to you, Lord Russell." There, in the great hall of Fluorescent Castle, the 4 armed knights knelt on one knee to swear fealty to the young lord, Russell Fluorescent Fungus. "Congratulations, Russell, on having your first group of followers." Family tutor, Mr. Charles, unsurprisingly, attended the occasion. He and the knight instructor, Mr. Eric, were considered part of Russell's earliest foundation. Eric, not much for words, said in a muffled voice, "Congratulations, sir." Russell smiled and nodded, accepting the congratulations from both teachers as Carter was already leading 10 male and female servants over. "Mr. Russell, here are your servants." Under the guidance of a male servant in his 40s, the 10 male and female servants knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Russell. "We have seen the master." "Please stand up," Russell said, gesturing with his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need not introduce ourselves today. We will have plenty of time to get to know each other in the future." And so, Russell's small foundation for his fiefdom had begun to take shape. Later, Baron Roman rewarded Russell with 5 large wagons full of goods and gave him 3 spirit insects after breaking their contracts. Along with the gift were several packs of magic potion seeds and more than a dozen surf technicians skilled in growing them. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, ready to set off, "I will not accompany you to the fief. Kindle will carry my intentions and announce the new lord to Wuyao, Snake Manor," said Baron Roman as he patted his younger son's shoulder and stepped aside to leave space for his wife. Meryl opened her arms. Russell leaned slightly forward and embraced his mother. Whispering into his ear, Meryl said softly, "Be alert at night. Don't skimp on the food in the manor, and don't fall behind in your fighting chi cultivation. If you run out, just tell me, and I'll resupply you for my dowry." "Thank you, Mother. If it's necessary, I won't hesitate to say so," Russell sincerely replied. The knights of this world prided themselves on self-reliance, but Russell was not going to be stubborn to the point of not accepting help when it made sense. Meryl kissed Russell's cheek and then let go. Lola came up, covered her mouth with her hand, and said, "Russell, I want to visit Wuyao Snake Manor. When can I come?" "It's too late today. Some other time," Russell said. Then he turned to the Baron and Baroness, thumped his chest with his right hand in a knightly salute, and bowed. "Father, Mother, I'm departing." The Baron nodded. Meryl smiled reluctantly. "Go on, child." Mounting his horse, Russell looked back at the towering fluorescent castle and roast the clay dragon circling in the distant sky. Without hesitation, he waved his hand forward. "Mr. Charles, Mr. Eric, let's depart." Charles took off his hat with a flourish and said with swagger, "Respected Lord Baron, Baroness, Charles bids you farewell." Eric simply bowed and then turned to follow Russell. The 4-armed knight attendants waited until all the servants had mounted their carriages, then flanked the 5 wagons, closely following Russell. The procession gradually picked up speed. Under the afternoon sun, they traveled along the cinder-paved road toward their new home. Back at the gate of Fluorescent Castle, the Baron, arm in arm with the Baroness, returned inside, and the male and female servants also followed them in, continuing with their unfinished work. Only Carter stood before the gate, watching the procession disappear along the road before raising his hand to wipe the warmth from his eyes. In a soft murmur, he mused, "Eaglets must learn to fly, Mr. Russell. You've grown up." Old Barton squatted at the edge of the field, puffing hard on his ceramic pipe, the sparks rising along with the smoldering tobacco. When the tobacco in the pipe was finished, he took it out and carefully tapped it against the palm of his hand, knocking out the ashes. Not wanting to damage the ceramic pipe, he dare not tap too hard. In the past, when he used a pipe made from an old tree root, he didn't have to worry about breaking it. He could tap it on a stone as hard as he liked without damaging it. But ever since his daughter, who worked as a servant in the castle, bought him this ceramic pipe, he had treasured it immensely. It was made from clay fired from a dragon belonging to Lord Baron's household. It was something extraordinary to be connected to a dragon. He especially loved to smoke his ceramic pipe in crowded places. It wasn't just about showing off the beauty of his pipe, but also to show off his own daughter, who worked as a servant in Lord Baron's castle. However, today old Barton wasn't in the mood to show off his ceramic pipe. After refilling his pipe with tobacco, he said with a worried expression, "The ice season receded too late this year, definitely going to delay the wheat sowing. If the manor's harvest decreases by the end of the year, Lord Baron is bound to be angry." A few other ragged serfs squatted beside old Barton, each smoking their own pipes. One of the elderly serfs, spraying saliva as he spoke, said, "What nonsense are you talking about? It's not Lord Baron anymore. Didn't you hear the steward mention a few days ago? Our Weow Snake Manor has already been given to the new lord. We're tilling the land for the new lord now. Old Barton exclaimed in surprise. A new lord? Which knight, sir? How come I haven't heard anything about it? You wander around the fields all day long and know nothing. Lord Baron has assigned our Weow Snake Manor to the young Lord Baron. Which young Lord Baron? Who else could it be? It must be Mr. Russell. Could it be Mr. Roland? Boasted the spit-spraying old serf, showing off his extensive knowledge. Mr. Roland will inherit the position of Lord Baron in the future, so it's Mr. Russell who has become our lord now. Upon hearing this, the other elderly serfs promptly brought their hands together in prayer. Praise Mr. Russell. No, praise Lord Russell. It's Lord Russell. How dare you address the Lord by his name? Praise the Lord. In the simple minds of the serfs, the Lord was like the sky over their land. Even speaking the Lord's name in private was considered a grave disrespect. The spit-spraying old serf also brought his hands together. Praise the Lord. As the conversation continued, no one dared to mention the name Russell anymore. They only dared to refer to him as the Lord. What do you think? If this year's wheat is delayed, will the Lord become furious? Old Barton started worrying again. Do you remember 5 years ago? That year the wheat production was less, and each of us serfs who grew wheat received 10 lashes. The spit-sprayed old serf, no longer spirited, sighed. Let's hope the new Lord is merciful and takes pity on us. The threat of 10 lashes truly had a deterrent effect. But soon, one of the serfs said, what do you think? With the new Lord coming, will he bring spirit insects and have us switch to growing magic potions? Ah, the spit-spraying old serf got excited again. Exactly, Lord Baron and several other lords have all started growing magic potions. If we get a plot in the magical medicine field, we wouldn't have to worry about whether the ice season is early or late. We could plant all year round. Would that be our turn? Doubted old Barton. Let's go ask the steward. Let's go together. The serfs stood up, each dusting off their behinds, and while smoking their pipes, headed towards the home of the serf steward. Meanwhile, the setting sun hung on the horizon, casting a warm glow. Even though it was nearly May, the weather was still a bit cold, with the thawing ice not yet fully melted. Russell's convoy steadily crossed the small bridge over Glowing River, entering Weow Snake Manor. Mr. Russell, let us wait here for a moment until all the stewards and managers of the manor have arrived. Then I shall announce the Baron's will, said the Knight Commander Kendall, the Phantom Beast Knight, who was escorting Russell's party. Although Kendall had not yet accumulated enough military exploits to be knighted as a lord, the fact that he could form a pact with a fantasy beast and advance to a Phantom Beast Knight meant that he had the potential of becoming a lord. In the future, he could very likely leap from being an attendant to a vassal. Therefore, Russell was very courteous to him. Thank you for your efforts, Knight Commander Kendall. You're too kind, Kendall replied. Kendall signaled to the knight attendants he had brought with him to go door to door, informing the serf managers to gather. These attendants regularly patrolled the fief and were very familiar with each manor. In just a short while, they managed to assemble around 40 to 50 serf managers, 5 headmen, and 1 estate supervisor appointed by the Baron, all in front of the manor's annex gate. The Baron's orders had reached the manor a few days prior, so the estate supervisor, headmen, and serf managers were not surprised by the current circumstances. They stood quietly in 2 rows, waiting for Knight Commander Kendall to read out the new edicts of the Baron. Mr. Russell. Kendall looked toward Russell. Russell gestured with his hand. Please. Thus, Knight Commander Kendall, no longer hesitant, faced the serf managers. He shouted loudly, all serfs of Weow Snake Manor, heed this command. The master of Glowing Valley, ally of the Clay Dragon, your lord, the great Baron Yoguang, has bestowed Weow Snake Manor to his second son, Lord Russell Fluorescent Fungus. Pointing backwards, Russell cooperated by revealing a gentlemanly smile full of grace to the serf managers. Knight Commander Kendall continued to shout, from this day forth, Lord Russell Fluorescent Fungus will take charge of everything at Weow Snake Manor. The land, serfs, livestock, possessions, including rocks, water sources, trees, and even your offspring will all belong to Lord Russell Fluorescent Fungus. He paused for a moment. Many serfs had already gathered around the manor's annex, yet they only dared to observe from a distance and did not approach. Knight Commander Kindle finally said, "At this moment, Russell Fluorescent Fungus is your new lord." Russell stood with his hands clasped behind his back, nonchalantly. Knight Commander Kindle stood to the side. The headmen and serf managers were at a loss. Many of them had long forgotten when the last time their lord had been replaced. However, the estate's supervisor showed no hesitation and was the first to kneel. "Great lord, respected sir, Hans offers his respects to you. All praises to the Baron. After longing day and night, Hans finally has the honor of welcoming you." With Hans taking the lead, the headmen and serf managers instantly fell to their knees in a wave, shouting in disarray. Phrases like, "All praises to the Lord," "Great Lord Sir," greeting the Lord with a respectful bow, and "Fortune be with the Lord" were abundant and varied. Russell was not fond of this kneeling custom, but at that moment, he had to follow local custom, using the opportunity to establish his initial prestige. "I am your new lord, Russell Fluorescent Fungus. Like my father, the Baron, I will continue to protect you, providing safety, housing, and food. In return, you must offer me your loyalty." Hans was the first to react, cheering loudly. Hans offers his firmest loyalty to the Lord. The headmen and serf managers followed suit. "We offer our loyalty to the Lord." Even the serfs who had gathered for the spectacle, carried by the atmosphere and without anyone leading them, began to kneel one by one. "We offer our loyalty to the Lord." Praise the Lord. Loyalty to the Lord. Sam will always be loyal to the Lord. Ouch, you poke my butt. Limping less praises the Lord. BBB. Bob. Praises PP pray. Praises the LLO. Lord. Knight Commander Kindle did not enjoy his dinner at the manor's detached residence. After announcing the Baron's will, he led the patrol night squad, taking advantage of the last trace of twilight, and set off again on Charcoal Dust Road. Hans and the 5 hamlet chiefs stay behind. Everyone else may go home. Russell ended the noisy loyalty oath segment. The serf supervisors left, and the spectating serfs also scattered early, not daring to linger near the manor's detached residence. "My lord, the study has been tidied up, and you can use it at any time," reported the middle-aged butler in a proper tailcoat as he approached. "Thank you, Morris," Russell responded with a smile. Morris was his new butler, whom Russell had already met on the way there, originally working at a detached residence in town. Baron Yogwang possessed many similar detached residences on his own fiefdom, and each one was staffed with servants to manage it, including the detached residence at Wuyao, Snake Manor. "To serve you is my mission, my lord." Morris expressed his joy upon receiving Russell's thanks and introduced the man and the woman beside him, both middle-aged. These are the remaining male and female servants of the manor's detached residence, Mr. and Mrs. Brown. "We have seen the Lord." Mr. and Mrs. Brown hurriedly kowtowed to Russell. "Please, stand up, Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown." Russell understood the reason Morris brought them forward was to inquire how he wanted to arrange them, so he went straight to the point. "Since you have chosen to stay at the manor's detached residence, you will follow Butler Morris." "Thank you, my lord. Thank you." The Browns thanked him repeatedly, beaming with joy. Strictly speaking, they were the servants of the Baron, and if Russell did not take them in, they would have to return to Fluorescent Castle and wait to be reassigned. "Morris, have someone send tea to the study," Russell casually instructed. Then he said to Charles and Eric, "My attendants, both of you teachers come with me to the study. Hans and the 5 hamlet chiefs, you come too." The manor's detached residence was not very large, consisting of 2 stories and a basement. It was laid out somewhat like a square fort, with roughly 12 rooms on each floor, 5 in the front row, 5 in the back row, and 1 on each side where they connected. In the center of the manor's detached residence, a rectangular courtyard garden about the size of 3 rooms was enclosed. Lords and servants lived on different floors. Naturally, the study was also on the 2nd floor. Russell, We must have a good drink tonight to celebrate your official takeover of the estate, Charles said as he followed closely behind Russell. Looking around, the detached residence doesn't look impressive from the outside, but it's really big inside. It's quite comfortable to live here. Are the two teachers planning to acquire property in the manor? Russell asked. Eric nodded. Yes. Charles spread his hands. Russell, simply help me rent a bachelor's room. My shrewish wife is fond of the hustle and bustle of the town, and using the excuse that the kids still have to attend the night academy in town, she doesn't want to move to live in the manor. He then changed the subject playfully, laughing. That's actually fine. I'll be comfortable living alone, able to drink whenever I want. The manor's affairs will still require a lot of attention from you, Mr. Charles, especially the manor's court, Russell said. Of course, it's my bounden duty, Charles replied with a smile. All right, everyone, please take a seat, Russell said as he sat behind the desk. Butler Morris, along with a male servant, brought chairs over for each person. After everyone was seated and tea was served, Russell looked around at everyone in the study, 2 teachers for attendance, 1 manor foreman, 5 hamlet chiefs. This was essentially the leadership of the entire manor. Hans, why don't you start by describing the situation at Wuyao Snake Manor? Yes, my lord. Hans quickly stood up and, at Russell's repeated gestures, reluctantly sat down on the edge of the chair to report. Wuyao Snake Manor covers 19,500 hectares, with 15,000 hectares cultivated, divided into 5 hamlets. The 5 hamlets were Barley Hamlet, Wheat Hamlet, Alfalfa Hamlet, Lentil Hamlet, and Pea and Wheat Hamlet. As their names suggested, Barley Hamlet mainly grew barley, Lentil Hamlet mainly grew lentils, and Pea and Wheat Hamlet grew both wheat and lentils. The original positioning of Wuyao Snake Manor within Glowing Valley was essentially to produce grains and forage. Beyond that, the serfs also raised some poultry and a small number of livestock. It could be said that the industry was very monotonous. Afterwards, the 5 hamlet chiefs each introduced the situation of the agricultural fields in their hamlets, as well as that of the serfs living there. In a manor, about 10 to 12 serf households would form a furrow, and each furrow was headed by a serf manager, responsible for coordinating farming activities, regulating neighborhood relations, and assisting with taxation. 10 furrows would make up a hamlet, headed by a hamlet chief, similar to the role of a production team leader. Above the hamlet chief was the manor foreman appointed by the baron, roughly equivalent to a village head. At the same time, the manor foreman was also in charge of all the long-term laborers in the manor, such as transport workers, milkers, and shepherds. The Wuyao Snake Manor had no long-term laborers, so the duties of Hans were to manage all the serfs in Wuyao Snake Manor. Hans, you will continue to assume the duties of the manor foreman, Russell said. Hans thanks my lord for your trust. Please be assured, my lord, Hans will manage the manor well for you, whipping the lazy serfs every day to make sure your crops are well tended. Hans immediately promised, thumping his chest. He then prattled on with promises that when Russell needed grass cutting, logging, road repairs, or land clearing, he could immediately muster no fewer than 500 serfs a day to perform the tasks. And there was no need for the manor to provide meals, letting the serfs fend for their own food. It could be said that when it came to squeezing labor out of serfs, Hans had a tight grip on the reins. Russell furrowed his brow. He wasn't yet comfortable with the serfdom system of this world. Although he had joked about being a mortgage slave before traversing to this world, bemoaning the blessing of a 996 work culture, at least he was paid for his work, unlike having to work for free and still pay for his food. However, he didn't currently plan on leading a rebellion and overturning the serfdom system. After all, he was now the serf owner himself. Be a bit nicer to the serfs, Hans, Russell said. Hans was immediately moved. My lord, you are truly too kind. The serfs are fortunate to have a lord like you. This flattery was too abrupt, leaving Russell momentarily at a loss for words. Ignoring Hans's sycophancy, Russell spoke to Charles and Eric. Father has given me 3 spirit insects, and we need to begin the cultivation of the magic potion as soon as possible. Tomorrow, Join me in surveying the manor so we can plan out the magical medicine field. Work so soon? Russell, why not rest for a couple of days? Charles asked with a laugh. We have plenty of time. The sooner it's completed, the sooner we can relax, Russell said. He had a whole plan ready for Wu Yao Snake Manor. If it were to run such a large territory in the same old way, it would be a disservice to his identity as someone who had crossed into this world. Charles responded, Of course, we will follow your lead. You are the Lord. Then he joked with a laugh, But you can't skimp on tonight's banquet. Russell, today we must celebrate properly. Russell, not wanting to dampen the mood, laughed. Naturally, Butler Morris, instruct the kitchen to prepare a lavish banquet for tonight, and I recall Father gave me a batch of cellar-stored black pearl wines. Let's have it with the meal tonight. Morris went to carry out the order. Charles's eyes lit up. Russell, you are a most generous lord. Black pearl, as its name suggests, glistens in the obsidian bottle much like the legendary magical black pearl, nourished by an old clam at the bottom of a lake. Swirling the crystal goblet and sniffing the fragrance of black pearl wine, Charles recited as if he were a poet. A long cellar-aged black pearl wine is like an ancient tale that flutters from a deep temporal tunnel, smooth and mellow as it enters the mouth, quietly telling you what true romance is. Teach, Eric curled his lip. It's a bit sour, not as good as brandy. Charles glanced at Eric with contempt. Black pearl wine in your mouth is simply a waste. Eric snorted, pretentious. What do you know? Black pearl wine is a fine drink meant for aristocrats to savor. The color, the vintage, the variety of grapes, they all ferment into distinct flavors. How would a bumpkin like you understand its nuances? Go drink some malt beer instead. I may be a bumpkin, but you are merely from a family whose fortunes have faded. Eric retorted. He was born into a commoner's family, and for generations, they were serfs, yearning to achieve great success and ascend into the ranks of the nobility. Charles's father had been a lord knight, but he died early, so their family's fortunes had waned and they had fallen back into commoner status. Even a family of faded glory once had its moments, a heritage you wouldn't understand, Charles said smugly, savoring a sip of the black pearl wine. I drank black pearl wine when I was younger. You, bumpkin, have you ever even tasted wine? Eric clenched his fist. You. All right, gentlemen. Russell, who had been enjoying the spectacle and didn't want a real fight to break out, raised his glass. Let us all have a toast to victory. To victory. Charles raised his goblet in response. Eric didn't actually want to fight, so taking the opportunity Russell provided, he too raised his glass, muttering, to victory. Tom, John, Jack, and James, the 4 night attendants, quickly wiped their greasy mouths and lifted their cups together. To victory. With a toast to victory, the atmosphere suddenly became jovial. All present were knights, their battle chi surging, consuming large quantities of food due to their high energy expenditure. The servants would bring a dish, and in no time, it would be wiped clean. Russell was no different, forgetting his usual noble restraint and eating with relish. Perhaps it was a matter of mindset, as the manor's annex felt like his real home, and in that moment, he could enjoy his meal with a far more relaxed attitude than at Fluorescent Castle. Russell, to the future of Wu Yao Snake Manor, please have a drink. Charles was more lively at the banquet than at any other time, pairing meals with black pearl wine. I truly wish this kind of life could be repeated every day. Russell took a modest sip. It will happen, Mr. Charles. Everything will come. After a while, James raised his glass. Sir, to victory. As night attendants, it was James and the others' duty to always accompany Russell, to protect him, and to take care of his needs in eating, drinking, and all else, whether at home or on the battlefield. It was an intimately close relationship. Many of the attendants, to great nobles, eventually earned the title of lord. Of course, Russell was only a lord himself and didn't have the authority to confer titles on his followers, but he would definitely provide them with good food and drink, and in critical moments, they would risk their lives for him. To victory, James! The banquet lasted a full 2 hours, and both teachers and all 4 attendants were completely drunk, except for Russell, who retained a bit of sobriety. Stepping out of the dining hall, he walked to the corridor by the courtyard. Butler Morris approached. "My lord, have his servants all eaten?" "Thank you for your concern, my lord. The servants have indeed eaten." "Are there enough rooms in the manor?" "I was just about to report to you, sir." Butler Morris took out a sheet of paper with a sketch on it. "There are 12 rooms downstairs, each quite large, around 15 or 16 square meters. The servants can squeeze in a bit, and your night attendants can share a room for now, 2 per room." The architectural style of the manor's annex was very rugged, built with stacked stones, so there was no pursuit of form, just an emphasis on size and sturdiness. Each room was nearly the same size, with a length and width of 4 meters. That is to say, the entire manor's length was 20 meters, and its width was 12 meters, not including the walls, which would make it even larger. "With the current situation, we can only make do temporarily, sir. You could divide one of the downstairs rooms into 2. That way, 2 or 3 servants can share a room, and your night attendants could each have their own room. The 3 rooms directly in front could be combined into a hall for receiving guests, with tea rooms and washrooms partitioned on either side." Morris showed quite a talent for design. The plan for the manor's annex on his draft was meticulous, with not only the guest hall, night attendant rooms, servant rooms, and kitchen clearly laid out, but also the toilets, boiler room, storeroom, servants' dining room, and bathroom all marked. As for the second floor, Morris had not marked anything. That was for Russell to decide. "Very good, Morris. Your arrangements are commendable." Russell did not stint on his praise. "Let's go with that for now. When the weather gets warmer, we can properly tidy up the manor's annex. Also, arrange for Charles and Eric to have rooms upstairs." "At your command, sir." After that, Morris hesitated as if he had more to say. Feeling refreshed by the evening breeze, Russell asked, "Is there something you want to say?" "From what I know, noble lords have a tradition of sharing a drink with the butler in the study at night. I'm not sure if you, sir, would also like this tradition," Morris said, looking at Russell with a hopeful gaze, awaiting his response. Russell raised his eyebrows, then smiled indifferently. "Since it's a tradition, let's continue it." Morris was overjoyed and bowed respectfully. "As you wish, sir." Then he asked, "Shall we start tonight? Go make sure the guests are all settled in, and I will take a bath. Afterward, I'll head to the study. Don't bring wine when you come tonight. I've drunk too much already." "Yes, sir." The second floor had a bathing room, though it lacked a shower. Male servants had to carry water from the boiler room on the first floor to the bathing room. It was the maid's responsibility to prepare the bath water for Russell, as well as bring clean clothes. But no one was there to assist with the bath. That was something Russell had to do himself. A few minutes in the hot water, and the effects of the alcohol dissipated. Battle Chi could produce the same effect as well. Circulating Battle Chi for half an hour could effectively alleviate the effects of alcohol. Of course, assuming one hadn't drunk too much and knew how to circulate the Battle Chi. Comfortable. After drying off and changing into fresh clothes, Russell felt completely relaxed. "Sir, please dry your hair." Head maid Leona brought a dry towel and began to tidy up the clothes in the bathing room. She was about 27 or 28 years old and not yet married. Dressed in a standard maid uniform, she wore a black dress reaching to her heels, topped with a white apron and a white headscarf. Despite the simplicity of her linen garments, Leona had a good figure, and the curve of her hips was pronounced as she bent over. Perhaps the lingering alcohol played a role. With an unintended glance, Russell felt a stirring of respect. However, as a gentleman, he quickly averted his gaze to the enchanting moonlight outside the window and couldn't help thinking, no wonder they have coming-of-age ceremonies at 16 here. This body has certainly reached the age of maturity. Moonlight lingered, scattering across the river's surface at the foot of the hillock in front of the manor's annex, reflecting shimmering, silvery white. The study's window faced the glowing river. Russell could enjoy this wonderful moonlit scenery. Without bringing wine, Butler Morris came in alone, carrying a candle, and knocked on the door. "Sir." "Sit. Are you looking at the scenery?" Without answering, Russell withdrew his gaze and asked, "Have you finished the work?" "Yes. The 4 attendants and 2 tutors have returned to their rooms to rest, and the servants have also finished organizing the goods and gone to sleep, Morris reported. I have fed the 3 spirit insects in your bedroom with jade powder. Spirit insects usually need not feed, as they draw nutrients from the earth through their symbiotic fungi. However, these 3 spirit insects were undergoing migration. The fungi had retracted into their bodies, unable to absorb nutrients from the earth. They could only replenish their magic power by nibbling on jadestone powder. I won't be dining at the Manor Annex tomorrow noon, Russell said. Then which footman would you choose to accompany you? Morris asked, as nobles always needed to bring a footman to serve meals and attend to daily needs when traveling. This was somewhat like the personal attendants for young masters in Dream of the Red Chamber. Russell currently had 3 footmen, Ram, William, and Fox. Strictly speaking, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, who stayed behind at the Manor Annex, were also servants. Mr. Brown was rather old to be a footman. You see to the arrangements. Russell, unfamiliar with the 3 footmen, left the decision to Morris. Then let's start with Ram. He's the most steady-hearted. If you find him unsuitable, next time we can switch to William or Fox. Sound good. As for Mr. and Mrs. Brown, sir, I plan to have Mr. Brown serve as the porter, while Mrs. Brown helps out in the kitchen under Mrs. Moore, Morris continued. Mrs. Moore was the cook, responsible for managing the kitchen. Her position was only second to the butler and slightly higher than that of the headmaid. Sound good. Additionally, would you instruct Hans, the foreman, to bring up the eggs and flour for the praising day as soon as possible? Praising day, Russell exclaimed in surprise. Of course, when you took office as Lord, all the serfs in the estate are required to pay eggs and flour to you as praise, Morris explained, adding, praise for you, sir, is not merely lip service. Russell then recalled that praising day was included in the holidays. It didn't seem like a celebration, but rather like an excuse for exploitation. Aside from this, on Dragon Birth Festival, when the Great Dragon was born, and Snow Ghost Festival, in remembrance of those slain by the Snow Demon, the serfs were required to give a portion of their living resources to the Lord. For example, on Dragon Birth Festival, they needed to give eggs to the Lord, while on Snow Ghost Festival, they had to give hens. Isn't this too harsh on the serfs? Russell asked. Morris replied naturally, Sir, the fields they till, the chickens, ducks they raise, the cows, sheep, dogs they feed, they all belong to you. They have enough to eat and wear. They should rightfully hand over their harvest to you. Indeed, the law stated as much. Even the serfs themselves belong to the Lord's personal property. Sensing Russell's hesitation, Morris added, Lord Baron, the supplies gifted by the barons scarcely contain any eggs or flour, hardly enough to last a few days. I understand. There's only this one praising day, correct? Yes. Tomorrow when Hans comes over, I'll instruct him. Anything else? That's all. Then good night, Mr. Morris. Good night, sir. Morris bowed and took his leave. The night came to an end with this, and Russell returned to his master bedroom to rest. The thick stone isolated all the sounds of the night, leaving only his own breathing. Lord, I become a lord. With a smile, Russell soon fell into a deep sleep. In a hazy state, his consciousness once again drifted into the desolate, gloomy dreamland, a dreamscape that visited him almost every night. However, unlike the castles defined by lines on the previous nights, this time, in the gloomy dreamland, the scene sketched out with dim lines turned into a manor annex and the empty land around it, including a small river drawn with lines, running through the edge of the gloomy dreamland. Beautiful, just as I thought, the gloomy dreamland is a region marked out with my sleeping place as the center. When I sleep in the castle, the gloomy dreamland corresponds to the area of the castle. When I sleep in the manor annex, the gloomy dreamland becomes the manor annex, plus the surrounding land. G.A. The little dream dragon appeared once again. When it arrived, Russell, in his cartoonish figure form, leapt onto it and immediately opened the magic key to the gloomy dreamland in a blink. A few bright lights emanated from the manor annex. They were the magic light of battle chi given off by Charles, Eric, and 4 knight attendants, with Eric's light being the brightest. After all, Eric was a great knight, while Charles and the 4 knight attendants were merely armed knights, a level below him. Russell had just cultivated his own battle chi and also became an armed knight. Besides, there were some other scattered magic lights in the manor annex, emanated by 3 spirit insects and some magical creations. TSK, compared to Fluorescent Castle, the magic light in my manor annex is utterly shabby. Gaga. Suddenly, the little dream dragon took Russell towards the direction of the riverbank. Upon reaching the riverbank, Russell exclaimed in surprise, seeing a faint glimmer twinkling within the river sketched in dim lines. Due to the light being too faint to outline the original shape of the item, it was unclear whether it was emitted by a fish. Besides, this faint light was slowly moving. It shouldn't be a fish. The swimming speed of fish can't possibly be so slow. It looks like some creature like a river clam moving. He suddenly remembered the black pearl wine he had drunk at the banquet. Charles had boasted that, according to legend, some lakes are home to special old clams capable of nurturing black pearls infused with magic power. Could this be a river clam that has nurtured a magic pearl? Unfortunately, in the gloomy dreamland, one could only look and not touch, unable to affect reality. Therefore, after observing for a while, Russell began to patrol other areas while riding the Little Dream Dragon. Regrettably, there were no other new magic lights. Little Dream Dragon, this is farewell. I'm off to pick up pearls, Russell said, preparing to wave goodbye to the Little Dream Dragon before immediately going in search of the river clam. The Little Dream Dragon cocked its head, looking at Russell with confusion, not understanding why. Man and dragon, they stared silently at each other. Very soon, Russell discovered a problem. He had no idea how to leave the gloomy dreamland. It was like being truly in a dream, knowing that you were dreaming, but unable to wake up. Little Dream Dragon, let me out. Gah, I said. I want to go out. Leave this place, bye-bye, understand? Russell tried to convey his thoughts to the Little Dream Dragon. What he got in return was the Little Dream Dragon tilting its head the other way. Gah. A moment later, Russell gave up on communication and showed the middle finger to the Little Dream Dragon. Idiot. Pretending to be a great dragon with 4 claws. According to legend, great dragons have 4 limbs, intelligence comparable to humans, and can communicate using dragon language. The Little Dream Dragon also had 4 limbs, but alas, was a fool. And so, man and dragon stared at each other until the Little Dream Dragon couldn't bear it anymore, became tired, and ended the gloomy dreamland with a gah. All consciousness plunged into chaos. Early in the morning, sunlight filtered through the gaps in the curtains and fell upon the bed, forming a bright pattern. Russell stretched his limbs, waking from slumber, and opened his eyes feeling neither fatigue nor irritation, but rather refreshed and full of vigor. Perhaps it was the youthful vigor that brought this sensation, or the deep sleep that conferred it, or maybe it was the battle chi that was constantly improving his physique. Anyhow, he was quite pleased with his current state of health. Brimming with health, he casually pulled the bell rope by his bedside, which was connected to the servant's restroom, causing another bell with a master bedroom sign to jingle. Servants couldn't always be at their master's side. Therefore, a bell rope was an indispensable device. Ah, that was a splendid sleep. Even though I have to struggle in the gloomy dreamland every night, it didn't affect my sleep. In fact, it was even more comfortable than before, Russell rejoiced inwardly. The next moment, his eyes widened. Pearl muscles. Last night in the gloomy dreamland, he had discovered what seemed to be a muscle that could nurture a magic power pearl. But he couldn't leave the gloomy dreamland. Even if the Little Dream Dragon was tired and the gloomy dreamland dispersed, he would fall into a deep sleep and couldn't wake up. Good. I didn't forget about my pearl muscle. I wonder if it's still there after one night, or if it has run away. Knock, knock, knock. The knock on the door was accompanied by the voice of the head maid. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Come in, said Russell, who had already gotten out of bed. The door opened, and head maid Leona entered with 3 maids, Eileen, Phoebe, and Olivia, each carrying out their duties just like the maids at Fluorescent Castle. One made the bed, another tidied the table, and the third prepared the washing utensils. However, it was evident that these 3 young maids were slightly more inexperienced in their movements compared to those at Fluorescent Castle. Moreover, the quality of the maids themselves was a bit lower. Eileen had a face full of freckles, Phoebe had buck teeth, and Olivia appeared short and stocky. Only head maid Leona had a tall figure and a beautiful face, and Russell also remembered how round her buttocks appeared when she bent down. After Russell was done with his ablutions, Leona and the maids left one after another. Manservant Ram knocked and entered, sir. Amidst. Russell didn't refuse the manservant's help in dressing. These noble habits have been ingrained in this body. Sir, do you need to practice your battle chi this morning? If so, you may wear this training outfit. Ram, serving Russell for the first time, was a bit uncertain about Russell's rules as he asked tentatively. Russell gave a brief command, training outfit. He didn't show his amiable side. Familiarity breeds contempt, while proximity without respect causes disrespect. Knowing how to balance, this was an art in itself. After donning his training outfit, he went downstairs for breakfast. Sir, night teacher Eric and 4 night attendants were already having breakfast. Russell sat down at the breakfast table. Good morning. Sir, your breakfast. Butler Morris personally brought the breakfast over. Compared to the self-serve breakfast at Fluorescent Castle, the fare here was a bit frugal. Just egg and fish over rice, bread and milk, along with a small dish of jam. Halfway through breakfast, Charles came downstairs yawning. Good morning, Russell. It seems self-discipline has become your instinct. Russell casually responded, Good morning. Breakfast finished. Butler Morris approached to report, Sir, Foreman Hans has come with 5 village chiefs to await your instructions. I've been wanting to see him, Russell thought and then spoke. He stepped outside the manor into the bright sunshine, which dispelled the chill of the previous night. Hans and the 5 village chiefs immediately greeted Russell, then followed him down the slope toward the glowing river. Hans, are there any pearl mussels or shells in the glowing river? Yes, sir. The glowing river is home not only to river clams, but also to giant snails. Sometimes Baron Sir would send men to collect a batch of river delicacies, and the serfs could take the chance to grab a few river clams and giant snails to savor the taste of these delicacies. All that was within the estate belonged to the lord. Thus, even the fish and shrimp in the river were considered the lord's private property. Unless the lord permitted, the serfs were not allowed to fish in the river on their own. I see. Hans, I'm in a mood for some river delicacies today. Could you help me fish some river clams and giant snails from the river? Russell asked with a smile. It would be inappropriate for him to do so himself, as it would neither suit noble manners nor seem fitting for his station. Hans didn't hesitate and rolled up his pant legs. To serve you is Hans's honor, sir. The 5 platoon leaders were not to be outdone. They followed suit, rolled up their pant legs, and stepped barefoot into the icy waters of the glowing river. The ice had melted late, and at this time, the water level of the glowing river was still shallow, barely covering the ankles at the river's edge. Before long, they had felled out a large pile of river clams and giant snails. Their skill was clear for all to see. They certainly had not refrained from stealthily fishing in the river on a regular basis. Wow, what's going on here? Charles, having finished breakfast, came over curiously. Are you salvaging river clams? Russell laughed. I'd like to have some river delicacies tonight. River delicacies, huh? Now we're in for a treat. The glowing river's delicacies are one of the local specialties, Charles, ever fond of drink and fine food, said. Usually, they're only served at the Fluorescent Castle and are a rare sight indeed. On the hillside, Eric and his 4 night attendants were earnestly practicing their battle chi, not joining the commotion below. Suddenly, Hans held up a basketball-sized black river clam, exclaiming excitedly, Praise the great dragon, sir. Look at this clam. I've never felt one this large before. As he spoke, Hans, holding the clam, hurried over to present the treasure. Russell's eyes lit up. He strongly suspected that the magic light he saw last night was emitted from within this clam, and that there must be a pearl of magic power inside. Before he had a chance to remind anyone, Charles started shouting, Russell, quick, open it. With a clam this big, there might already be a pearl of magic power inside. Legend has it that some large shells, like a gemstone dragon, can nurture pearls of magic power. The gemstone dragon could nourish veins of gemstones and was a miraculous creature birthed by the earth. A pearl of magic power clearly couldn't compare to a gemstone, but it was still a rare and magical object with extraordinary effects. Can you pry it open, Hans? I don't have a knife, sir. At that moment, a fine steel longsword was handed over. Eric had also approached and offered his own sword. But Hans struggled for a while and still couldn't pry open the giant clam. Let me. Eric, unable to stand by any longer, crouched down and, channeling his battle chi into the fine steel longsword, stabbed fiercely at the seam of the clam shell. The tightly closed clam shell couldn't withstand the force and was pierced by the sword tip. With a snap, Eric exerted force, and a crack opened in the giant clam. He dropped the fine steel longsword and, using his hands, pried at the opening and forcefully pulled the two shell halves apart, revealing the golden-hued flesh of the clam. Scraping away the clam's flesh, a membranous sac was revealed, beneath which there were 5 irregular, round protrusions. The largest was the size of a hen's egg, while the smallest was only as big as a marble. Wow, pearls! There really are pearls! Charles exclaimed excitedly. This time, we truly must praise the great dragon. Russell, there really are pearls of magic power inside. In this world, there were no ordinary pearls. Each and every pearl held magic power. Just like the gemstone veins nourished by the great dragons, they all contained miraculous magic power, and once that power was exhausted, the gemstones would shatter. The same was true for pearls. Well done, Russell applauded softly. Although he had guessed as much the night before, the actual capture of a pearl was still an exciting event. After all, this was the first benefit he had garnered through his own golden finger. Immediately, he instructed, Butler Morris, have the kitchen prepare a batch of milk tea for Hans and the others to warm themselves up. Hans could not contain his excitement. Although his feet were soaking in the icy river water, numb with cold, he had dredged up a magic pearl for the Lord Baron. He was well aware that his position as the estate's foreman was now secure. He had not seen the Lord Baron himself instruct Butler Morris to send him a steaming cup of milk tea, a delicious treat that only noble lords could savor, said to be mixed not only with fresh milk and sugar, but also chocolate sauce, honey, cinnamon powder, and even brandy. Irresistibly fragrant and sweet, one sip was all it took to feel warmth spread throughout his body. My God, praise the Lord, this is so delicious. I've never had anything this tasty in my life. Hypite, the chief of Barley Hamlet, moaned in appreciation. The Lord is truly the kindest of gentlemen, said One-Eyed Boris from Wheat Hamlet, beaming with happiness. Of course, the Lord is the kindest of gentlemen, the plump cook from the kitchen said as she walked over with a kettle. Not only did he let you warm up by the stove, but he also had me serve you another cup of milk tea. His generosity towards you peasants is simply too great. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. The few who had been reluctant to drink the milk tea, seeing that refills were offered, ignored the scalding heat and downed their cups in one go, then eagerly extended their cups, eyeing the kettle in the cook's hand. Uncle Boris, did you dredge up pearls for the Lord? What is a pearl? The kitchen maid, adding coal to the stove, curiously asked, Do pearls grow inside river clams? Are they kind of gemstone? Ah, you must be Barbara, right? One-Eyed Boris recognized the busy kitchen maid. Old Barton's girl? Yes. All grown up now, are we? Old Barton said you were working in Fluorescent Castle. Didn't expect you to have followed the Lord back to the manor. Barbara grinned, her freckled face lively, and her pair of protruding canines exceptionally eye-catching. I wanted to be closer to home. Uncle Boris, you still haven't explained what a pearl is. Pearls, well, One-Eyed Boris actually didn't know what a pearl was either, as this was the first time he'd seen a pearl inside a river clam after touching them all his life. However, this did not stop him from boasting. Pearls are gems from the water. Let me tell you, noble lords love pearls the most. While sipping on a milk tea and bragging, the boiler room was filled with a joyous atmosphere. Barbara, Stop chatting and go fetch a bucket of water. We still need to wash a huge pile of river clams and snails," the cook shouted from the kitchen. Barbara quickly got up. "I'm on it, Mrs. Moore." "Be quick about it. Act like someone who gets things done." "Will do, Mrs. Moore." Meanwhile, in the hall of the manor's separate courtyard, 5 silver-white pearls were laid out on a table, with Russell, Charles, and Eric sitting around it. The magic power isn't very abundant, somewhat inferior to that of gemstones. But compared to the overly turbulent magic power in gemstones, the magic in the pearls is gentler and perhaps could be used to make magic elixirs. Eric offered his opinion. He was the only great knight of the entire estate, ranking above an armed knight, with battle chi flowing through all his meridians. Just awaiting to contract a fantasy beast, he could then advance to become a phantom beast knight. Pity there are only 5 pearls. "Russell, I think it's better to treat them as jewelry, to keep them for gifts," Charles said. A mine nourished by a great dragon could yield a not insignificant number of gemstones, which is what allowed for substantial economic value. An unexpected harvest of 5 pearls from a large river clam was indeed rare, but their real value was not high. Russell seemed pensive. "If river mussels can produce pearls, what do you think about the possibility of artificially cultivating pearls?" "Artificial cultivation?" Charles shook his head. "Russell, that's a bit far-fetched. Pearls are a gift from heaven, not a magic potion. How could they possibly be cultivated artificially? Lord Baron sends people to the river to fish every year, but we have never seen a river mussel produce a pearl." Eric nodded in agreement. Russell was not surprised by this. None of the mussels in the glowing river had ever produced pearls, so naturally, no one considered cultivating them. However, his knowledge as a transmigrant let him know that pearls could be artificially cultivated. He didn't know the specific methods, but he was somewhat familiar with the principle behind pearl formation. When the soft body of a shellfish is invaded by a foreign object, it secretes nacre to envelop the object, eventually forming a pearl. Perhaps pearls could be cultivated artificially. He thought to himself, but didn't say it out loud just yet. After all, this was a different world where pearls were creations of magic power. Whether they could be artificially cultivated was still an open question. Moreover, cultivating pearls was not a priority. After signaling Butler Morris to put away the 5 pearls, he followed Eric to start his morning knight's lesson. "The radiant swordsmanship technique is most suitable for you to practice, sir." Holding a fine steel longsword in both hands, Eric's battle chi surged into the blade, visible to the naked eye as a wisp of ripple wafted from the sword like vapor. It has great lethality, and, moreover, it is most suited for breaking through. Russell also held a fine steel longsword in both hands, following alongside Eric and learning every move of the radiant swordsmanship technique. Eric, usually silent, turned out to be very detailed and patient in teaching. With each move, we are pursuing not only strength but also understanding the synergy between battle chi and the techniques, and then, with the help of these techniques, striking through with battle chi. "Ha! Ha!" Eric slashed with his sword, and a faint, vapor-like sword beam flew straight from the blade, traveling more than 3 meters in the air. With this move, the battle chi will be drawn through the channels in the hands due to the movement of the technique. "Sir, today you'll focus on practicing just this move." "All right," Russell nodded, then repeatedly practiced the move. The fine steel longsword sliced through the air, but alas, no sword beam emerged from it. The previous self's desperate efforts had indeed caused the chi seed to bloom, providing him with real battle chi. However, the battle chi circulated only through the main channels in his body, barely forming a minor circulation that nourished and strengthened his physique. Unlike Eric, he could not infuse the battle chi into his weapon and release impressive sword beams. Only when battle chi continued to grow and then struck through the channels all over the limbs and bones, connecting all pathways and forming a grand circulation, could he control it as easily as moving his limbs, freely releasing sword beams. And by that time, he would advance from an armed knight to a great knight. Whoosh, whoosh. Russell earnestly swung his sword with each strike, not slacking even as sweat soaked his back. Inside his body, with each sword swing, a thread of battle chi was drawn out from the main channels, striking towards the channels in his hands, chipping away at new branches bit by bit. He didn't feel tired, only a sense of marvel and exhilaration. Cultivating battle chi is truly a bit like martial arts from those wuxia stories. He would occasionally get distracted and think about various things, but in my case, it seems like I first connected the governor and conception vessels, and then I'll start to open the 8 extraordinary meridians and the 12 primary channels. For 1 hour, Russell practiced a single move from radiant swordsmanship technique over and over again. By the end, his arms were numb from the practice. "Eric, have you noticed? Russell is much more diligent than before," Charles whispered to Eric. "He used to take 2 or 3 breaks during morning practice, but now he doesn't rest at all, and his movements are consistently deliberate." "The Lord has matured," Eric responded succinctly. As the chi seed blossomed, the rite of passage into adulthood, the responsibilities as a lord and a knight, a boy grows into a man, not merely through the transition from a woman's belly. At least in Eric's view, Russell's maturity stemmed from taking on the burdens of lordship. A lord is not merely a ruler or an exploiter, but also the protector of his subjects, battling against invading snow demons, guarding everything in his realm with sweat and blood. Huff! He set down the fine steel long sword and took the towel handed to him by the servant ram, quickly wiping off his sweat. Russell approached. "Gentlemen, it's getting late. I need to take a bath before heading to Fluorescent Castle. I leave the task of inspecting the land in your hands, hoping when I return, you will have come to a decision on where to cultivate the magic potion." "Yes," answered Eric. Charles added, "Don't worry, Russell. I discussed this with Hans yesterday, and we've got a good grasp of the situation with the manor's fields. We'll soon determine the best plot for cultivating the magic potion." "Good," said Russell as he returned to the manor's guest house. The maids had prepared hot water for him. After the bath, the servant ram helped him into a riding suit suitable for traveling. Without a hairdryer, he could only wipe his hair with a towel a few additional times, rapidly absorbing the moisture. As he descended the stairs, he regained his appearance of a young and handsome noble elite, exuding an air of elegance and wealth with every gesture. "You are a born nobleman, sir," Morris exclaimed in admiration. "Thank you," Russell smiled. He then strode out of the manor's guest house, followed by Ram, who was a bit nervous and glanced at Morris. Quickly, Morris whispered, "Hurry and catch up with the Lord. Once you arrive at Fluorescent Castle, focus fully on serving him. Don't bring shame upon his status." "I'll try my best, no, I guarantee it," replied Ram. Outside the main gate, Russell had already mounted his black steed, and the 4 armed knights were ready to depart. Seeing the servant ram, the armed knight Tom asked with a taunting smile, "Young lad, can you ride a horse?" I can," he responded. Boring. Not getting the reaction he wanted, Tom lost interest in further chatter. "Keep up, and don't fall behind." "Nay." Russell's black steed let out a long neigh and bolted out like an arrow, followed in a straight line by the 4 armed knights, and at the very end was the servant ram, crouching low on the horse, nervously holding the reins, careful not to relax. Being considerate of the servant ram's inexperienced horsemanship, Russell did not push his horse too fast and began cultivating his battle chi on the way. The morning practice was for breaking through the battle chi levels, opening new meridians. And now, it was about continuously guiding the battle chi through the minor circulation to refine new battle chi and steadily strengthening it. 2 hours later, Fluorescent Castle was in sight. After passing through the stone archway and reaching the castle's main gate, Russell dismounted and saw the old butler, Carter, already waiting for him. "Mr. Russell, welcome home. Did you have a good night's sleep?" "Sturdy, but I do miss the castle's rooms," said Mr. Russell, though he actually didn't miss them at all. He found the manor annex much more comfortable to live in. "Your room is always ready for you," Butler Carter said. "Of course, I wouldn't think otherwise." Behind him, 4 armed knights dismounted, and servant ram followed suit, his legs shaking a bit as he landed. Although horseback riding was an essential part of servant's training, he hadn't ridden for a long time and had only hastily practiced the night before. Seeing Knight Tom about to leave, Ram voiced the question that had been bothering him. "Sir Tom, if I can't ride a horse, does that mean I can't serve the master?" Knight Tom laughed, showing his teeth. "If you can't ride, I'd carry you, but you'd have to endure Tom's rough treatment all the way." Ram shuddered and rushed into the castle as if fleeing. Tom let out a scornful laugh. "Lord Tom doesn't fence. Besides, you have the face of a monkey." "Don't cause trouble, Tom," Armed Knight James said. "Just teasing a servant. Watch your attitude, Tom, and don't provoke the master's servant. If the master investigates, we won't vouch for you." Tom grinned sheepishly. Why would the master care about a servant? Another armed knight, John, interjected. Whether the master cares or not is no excuse to torment a servant. The master is a natural noble. If you want to advance, then be loyal to the master and be a qualified retainer. Tom surrendered with raised hands. "Don't worry, guys. I get the message." "Father, Mother, Lola, oh, Grandmother, when did you arrive?" Mr. Russell quickly reunited with his family. Not only were his parents and sister Lola there, but also his grandmother, Lady Ingrid. "Counting the days, I knew you rash kid would be visiting your fief. Could your grandmother not come to see you?" "I didn't expect you wouldn't stay even a day longer." Lady Ingrid greeted her eldest grandson with a full embrace as soon as she arrived. "I was actually planning to visit Uncle's manor to see you," Mr. Russell said with a smile. He had an uncle, Rosen Fluorescent Spore, whose situation was similar to his. As a second son in the family, he was knighted by their grandfather and was given the Great Wind Manor on the upper glowing river as his fief. Now both of them were vassals to Mr. Roman. "Your uncle wanted to come as well, but the situation in the north is unstable. Those damned snow ghosts keep showing up, and he can't leave," said Lady Ingrid. Lady Ingrid didn't live with her eldest son at Fluorescent Castle. Instead, she stayed with her second son at a hot spring annex of the Great Wind Manor. There was a hot spring that was warm all year round, and bathing in it regularly promoted longevity. Mr. Russell sat with Lady Ingrid and asked casually, "Didn't Aunt come with you?" "If she came, the two kids would want to come along, and then your father would get peeved by the noise," she replied. "Father wouldn't be annoyed by my cousin's noise," Mr. Russell defended. "Yes, your father wouldn't, but others might not feel the same," Lady Ingrid said, glancing seemingly unintentionally at the Baroness, who was instructing the servants to serve the dishes. "After all, it's the Baron's castle with strict rules." Baroness Melly turned her head with an unchanged smile as if she hadn't caught the insinuation in Lady Ingrid's words. Baron Roman then spoke. They didn't come. Next time, let Russell visit Rosen's family." "It's the thought that counts," Lady Ingrid said, patting Russell's hand. "Now that you're managing your own fief, you must pay close attention and don't be fooled by the serfs. When it's time for punishment or execution, you must have your own judgment." "Understood," Mr. Russell replied casually. The lunch was hearty, and afterwards, everyone moved to the living room to digest their meal and chat. Russell briefly talked about his impressions of living on the ancestral land, but since he had only stayed there for a day, there wasn't much novelty to share. Most of the time, it was Lady Ingrid and Merrill who were engaged in idle chatter. Russell always felt there was a powder keg about to explode between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but both exercised restraint and avoided a direct confrontation. Mr. Luo Mand seemed utterly oblivious to this. However, Russell thought that the bear might be aware, but just pretended not to know. After all, such timeless problems didn't need to be addressed or cause hardship for oneself until they led to destructive consequences. Happiness should be the focus of life. Don't neglect your battle chi practice. Your talent is mediocre at best, and if you don't train diligently, your achievements will be limited. Understand, Father. I've had Carter prepare a batch of magic elixirs for you. Take one every day when you return, and don't refuse. This is also your grandmother's wish, the Baron said. Lady Ingrid turned around and said, "Indeed, the family isn't short of money, and it's natural to reserve the magic elixirs for the little ghost fire. Of course, I won't refuse, Russell said with a smile. He wasn't coveting the Baron's wealth. After all, being the second son, he wasn't entitled to it, but since the Baron was willing to offer, he saw no reason to decline. Little ghost fire has become sensible, Lady Ingrid said with a smile. He used to be somewhat stubborn, but now he has become very endearing. Meryl added with a smile. Mother, Russell has grown up. He's no longer the little ghost fire that you speak of. Why isn't he? In my heart, Russell and his brothers are all little ghost fires. Little ghost fire is, after all, a nickname given by outsiders. We're the ghost fire family, so what if others tease us a bit? It doesn't cost us a copper coin. If anyone disagrees, let Mr. Ross unleash dragon breath, and I guarantee it will burn them to a crisp, leaving only ash, Lady Ingrid jested. Meryl narrowed her eyes and said, other families might have dragons too. The Shadowflame Duchy has 2 earls and 5 barons. Each family owns 1 or more bipedal flying dragons. These magical creatures are a standard asset of the great nobility. Without bipedal flying dragons, one cannot sufficiently protect the safety of their territory. We're not afraid of having dragons. If someone insults our Ghostfire family, we'll insult them back. Every family has a nickname. Doesn't your Rainflower family also get called Little Birds? Lady Ingrid retorted, unwilling to be outdone. Rainflowers are a type of blue flower that looks like a bird from afar. Hence, the Rainflower family is also known as the Bluebird family, sometimes teasingly referred to as little birds. The same goes for glowing mushrooms. They can emit a green glow at night and prefer growing on tree trunks, appearing from a distance like a floating wisp of ghost fire. Thus, the Fluorescent Fungi family is also known as the Ghostfire family. Naturally, the family's offspring get the nickname Little Ghost Fires. Of course, there are even less flattering nicknames, such as Green Ghosts and Green Ants. The banter between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was tinged with argument, and their seemingly playful rivalry had no impact on Mr. Luo, Man, and Russell. All right, Russell said, speaking of magic elixirs, I almost forgot. I brought a small gift for grandmother, mother, and Lola. He called over the manservant Ram and took a small pouch from him. Russell pulled out 3 pearls from the pouch, all freshly extracted from river clams that very morning, their creamy white surfaces shimmering with a soft luster, and a light discernment would allow one to feel the subtle magic power flowing unceasingly within. He gave the egg-sized pearl to his grandmother, the slightly smaller one to his mother, and the one a bit smaller still to Lola. Wow, brother, what is this? It was Lola's first time seeing a pearl. Pearls, gems nurtured within shells. This really is a rare treasure. Grandmother hasn't even given you a gift yet, and instead, she has received one from you, said Lady Ingrid, unable to resist the beautiful pearl and cherishing it. Little Ghostfire, where did you find these? Baron Roman also expressed curiosity. Pearls really are rare to see. They were picked up from the river this morning, Russell roughly explained. He wanted to eat seafood but ended up finding pearls. I didn't expect there to be such an unusually large clam that actually bore 5 pearls of varying sizes. There were still 2 small ones left in the bag. Brother, you're so lucky, Lola said with envy. Lady Ingrid laughed. Our Ghostfire family has always been lucky. Back in the day, our little Ghostfire's great-grandfather managed to pick up Mr. Ross, and now it's little Ghostfire's turn to find pearls. From this, it's clear that the great dragon of the Grand Duchy has always been watching over us, blessing us. Baron Roman said wryly, listen to you talk. A bipedal flying dragon and a few pearls are completely incomparable. After giving away the pearl gifts and receiving a batch of magic elixirs, Russell felt that it was about time to leave. He prepared to get up and bid farewell. Meryl asked eagerly, Russell, are you staying overnight at the castle? No, Mother. Sigh, all right then. Just one night apart, and Meryl already missed her son. Baron Roman massaged his wife's shoulders, consoling her. We're not far. It's right under our noses. What's there to worry about? Russell, go back, manage the manor well, and don't fall behind in your battle cheat training. Yes, Father. Why do you have to leave so soon? Lady Ingrid murmured, The little ghost fires are all grown up now. Grandmother, I will visit you often, Russell said with a smile. Lola also came over and said, Russell, when are you going to take me to the Wuyao Snake Manor? Next time, when I have the time, I will come to pick you up. Grandmother, father, mother, no need to see me off. I'm leaving now. With a wave of his hand, Russell left Fluorescent Castle with flair. Once he passed the stone archway outside the castle, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Fluorescent Castle always made him feel restrained. Luckily, Mr. Ross seemed to have wandered off somewhere else today and wasn't in the castle, so Russell wasn't subjected to his ominous glances, which would have made him feel even more constrained. The sun was to the west. The horse headed south. After galloping for 2 hours down the charcoal dust road, Russell returned to his faithful domain, the Wuyao Snake Manor. My lord, welcome home. Butler Morris, along with the male and female servants, greeted him at the main entrance as he returned. Though the servants were few, proper protocols couldn't be neglected. Where are Mr. Charles and Mr. Eric? The two lords have gone to inspect the manor. Morris, I won't be returning to the annex. Russell turned his horse around, leading his 4-knight attendants back on the road, and began his first inspection of his domain along the manor's internal trails. Not far from the manor's annex was Pea and Wheat Hamlet. Half of the serfs in Pea and Wheat Hamlet cultivated flat beans, while the other half grew wheat. In the center of the hamlet, there was also a small market. The majority of the manor's serfs lived near this small market area, huddling close to one another. There were no crisscrossing streets, only a northwest to southeast charcoal dust trail. The serfs' houses were distributed along both sides of the trail. Mostly wooden houses with a scattering of 2-story, stone-constructed buildings. The arrival of a party of 5 riders swiftly aroused the serfs in the small market, and then the serf manager who had met Russell yesterday took the lead and knelt on the ground. Welcome, my lord. The lord has come to inspect the manor. Praise the Lord. In a rustle, the serfs knelt down en masse, creating a messy scene, but as if by telepathy, they cleared the charcoal dust trail so that Russell and his group could pass through on horseback. On either side of the charcoal cinder path, serfs voluntarily knelt down to greet their lord, causing a certain shock to Russell's heart. This world, this era, noble authority is too intense. He dared not imagine, if he were to become a serf himself, how he might break the bonds of class and enjoy a life of freedom. Perhaps. He lifted his head, his gaze passing over the kneeling serfs, looking toward the more southern direction, where, unlike the glowing valley, it was still covered with ice and snow. Under the ice and snow, where the glowing river converges, there lies a dark cavern called the Echo Water River Cavern. Inside the cavern lived a group of freemen who didn't belong to any lord. Indeed, they had obtained freedom, but their lives were precarious, constantly on the verge of death. As the lord of Wuyao Snake Manor, one of Russell's major responsibilities as a vassal was to guard the borders of his territory rigorously, preventing freemen from crossing the border to plunder. Freemen who did not submit to a noble lord would receive no protection from a lord. Turning his gaze back, Russell looked at the serfs still kneeling on the ground and said loudly, "Everyone, please rise. From now on, when I, Russell Fluorescent Fungus, your lord, pass by, it is sufficient to give me a nod of recognition. There is no need to kneel and kowtow. Praise the master. Master, you are kind and generous. Good-hearted master. Master, you are a true noble. Whoa, such bliss. Praise the master. Your glory is immense, master." The serfs expressed their gratitude in a babble of voices, with just the act of no longer having to kneel making them think their new lord must be a very good person. After giving the small market a cursory glance, Russell found that there were only 2 establishments that could be called shops. One was a bakery, responsible for making bread for the serfs and helping them purchase some urgently needed supplies from the town. The other was a blacksmith's workshop, which could also be called a stonemason's or a carpenter's shop, dealing in all kinds of ironware, stoneware, and wooden furniture. Russell even saw some leather goods hanging at the storefront, showing how varied the owner's skills were. Besides, there was another spot that could hardly be called a shop, with a row of sheds barely constituting a farmer's market. Some serfs set up stalls here, selling farm goods like chicken eggs, rice wine, and cured meats from their homes. Really simple. Russell lamented again. Weow Snake Manor encompassed nearly 20,000 hectares, which was even larger than some townships back on Earth, and yet it was far less prosperous. The crux of the issue was the population. With only 3,500 people, it was the size of a somewhat larger village. That number simply could not sustain the commercial system of a small town. There are too few serfs. The manor's farm output in the past could not support many people, but now that I have brought the spirit insects, we should be able to cultivate magic medicine and feed quite a few more people. From where do we get more people? He could not help but once again turn his gaze towards the Echo Water River Cavern. This matter required long-term consideration. Leaving the small market, he continued along the terrain that rose and fell along the charcoal cinder path, forming a not-so-typical valley with a glowing river at its center. In Russell's view, the entire glowing valley was like a basin, and Weow Snake Manor was situated at the mouth on the southernmost end of this basin, on land that was undulating like hills. In the distance, there were the low mountains on the east and west sides covered with ice and snow. After crossing a mound of earth, two mounted figures could be seen galloping in the distance. The newcomers were none other than Charles and Eric, his two teachers. Lord Russell, welcome to inspect the estate. Ha! As soon as I saw the knights in the distance, I guessed it was you returning, Charles said from atop his horse, doffing his cap in greeting while still holding a heather root pipe between his fingers. Eric then pounded his chest with his right hand. Sir, good to see you, both of my teachers. How goes the inspection of the manor? Have you found any suitable places for cultivating magic medicine? The most suitable place is still the banks of Glowing River, Charles said. Although he had fallen on hard times, he still had some learning. Lord Baron's magical medicine field is located on both banks of Glowing River, and so should ours be. Russell was non-committal. Is that so? I made a rough plan. West of Glowing River are Lentil Hamlet and Alfalfa Hamlet, and east are Pea and Wheat Hamlet, Barley Hamlet, and Wheat Hamlet. We can cut out the farmland near the banks of these 5 hamlets to form a new magic medicine ton. Standing on a hill on horseback allowed a distant view of the entire Glowing River. With a casual gesture, Charles explained, this way, Magic Medicine Ton can benefit from the full irrigation of Glowing River and also be easily patrolled. In case of danger, we can promptly gather the cordyceps back into the bodies of the spirit insects, avoiding major losses. Cultivating in this world is not quite the same as on Earth. There might not be a big difference in planting ordinary crops. Serfs can manage that well. But the cultivation of magic medicine needs spirit insects to sustain it, using the influence of cordyceps to provide the special environment for the growth of magic medicine. Cordyceps is the plant or mushroom body that nurtures spirit insects. Simply put, it is an enchanted item. Spirit insects can retract cordyceps at any time or plant them and adjust their range of influence over the magic medicine through the cordyceps. Russell was a man of action. Let's go take a look together and determine the boundaries of Magic Medicine Ton while we're at it. Charles shrugged his shoulders. You're the Lord, as you wish. They galloped on their horses and came to the banks of Glowing River. Look, Russell, this area also has a large birch forest, all old trees with many years on them, perfectly suitable for the growth of glowing mushrooms, Charles said, pointing to a stand of trees just sprouting new buds, the forest spreading along the river, sparse but extensive. Glowing mushrooms prefer to grow on tree trunks and are somewhat like parasitic mushrooms. Good, but this forest alone isn't enough to cultivate 150 acres of glowing mushrooms. We need to continue tree planting to expand the birch forest, Russell said with satisfaction. John, go and find Hans. Tell him to bring people to measure the land. Yes, sir. The armed knight John complied and left. Seeing this, Charles hesitated. Russell, are you beginning the land measurement today? The sun is nearly set. Wouldn't it be better to start tomorrow? Today's work must be done today. Magic Medicine Ton must be planned as soon as possible, Russell said, not taking no for an answer. His own estate, his own farmland, planting his own crops. Everything inspired an endless creativity within him. Anything that could be done quickly simply couldn't wait overnight. Russell's will was well reflected in his followers and freemen. Hans arrived quickly, with a group of hamlet heads and serf supervisors following him. Rain flowers, glowing mushrooms, dill. The magic medicine ton will be divided into 3 sections. The birch forest on both banks will serve as the cultivation area for glowing mushrooms, making sure to keep 150 acres. Charles, initially wanting to slack off, had no choice but to perk up and take charge of the work. He could not leave everything to Russell. Otherwise, he would lose his own value. Yes, Lord Charles, we'll start from the birch forest right away. I have brought the measuring tape and stakes, Hans said, bowing. The hamlet heads and serf supervisors, under the direction of Charles and Eric, began to measure the land, section by section. The sunlight showered through the birch forest, coating the straight branches with a light layer of golden hue. Tree connected to tree, the bright green buds and golden branches presented nature's beauty in full splendor. Russell gracefully rode his horse to the river's edge, stepping on the riverside stones, and mused to himself, "This place is as beautiful as a scenic spot. Too bad I'm the only visitor." They remained busy until nightfall, finally having measured the approximate extent of magic medicine ton. After all, a single spirit insect could only affect 150 acres of magic potion, so the scale of magic medicine ton was quite small, totaling only 500 acres. In the short term, 500 acres would suffice. Russell didn't believe he had any means by which to obtain additional spirit insects. They were too rare. The reason why nobles continuously had spirit insects was because, over the long-term cultivation of magic potion, there was a small chance for new spirit insects to be nurtured from the magic potion. Although there was also a chance for spirit insects to appear in the wild, it was almost negligible. If, within a spirit insect's lifespan of 10 to 20 years, it could nurture another spirit insect, it would be considered very fortunate. As for the evolution of spirit insects into mushroom birds or little sprites, the probability was equally minuscule. Fortunately, little sprites typically live for over 50 years, and it wasn't rare to see them live for 100 years. Such a long lifespan was enough for a family to cultivate many spirit insects, and then, with some luck, one of them could evolve and continue to ensure the family supply of magic potion. I hope my mushroom bugs and spirit insects work hard at cultivating magic potion, and then swiftly nurture a new generation of spirit insects. Butler Morris handed over a jade box containing spirit insects. Russell took it absent-mindedly. Inside lay 3 fat insects, lazily sprawling. These insects were adorned with splendid patterns and had a lustrous, jade-like texture that made them appealing and cute, rather than disgusting like common bugs. "Mushroom bug, little fellow, you go and settle in first." Russell extended his hand, and the Yuguangsun mushroom bug with its bright green pattern crawled onto his palm, following his will. These spirit insects had already been contracted and were telepathically linked with Russell, who could command them with simple thoughts. "Wow, truly magical and beautiful creatures," Charles exclaimed from the side. "It truly is unimaginable that it is these beings who create the magic potion and magical materials, adding infinite beauty to our lives." Approaching the largest, thickest birch tree, Russell placed the Yuguangsun mushroom bug onto the trunk. It seemed to understand that its new home was ready. The Yuguangsun mushroom bug crawled about the trunk for a few moments before opening its tiny mouth impatiently and spitting out a minuscule seed, which would have been invisible without close observation. The seed landed on the trunk of the birch tree. In an instant, a cluster of green mushrooms grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, with delicate stalks and flat caps, looking extremely dainty. A cluster of glowing mushrooms produced 7 or 8 fruiting bodies, arranged in a ring, resembling a large green flower at first glance. This type of mushroom emitted a green luminescence at night, like a will-o'-the-wisp. Some people called it ant street lamps. However, the fungus here was clearly larger than ordinary magical glowing mushrooms. This one on the birch tree was as big as a washbowl. Well done, little guy. Seeing that the fungus had securely taken root, Russell picked up the mushroom bug and placed it back into the jade box. When the fungus was attacked, it would shrink into a seed and then convert into magic power to return to the mushroom bug's body. Protecting the mushroom bug was tantamount to protecting the fungus itself. Rudy, Russell turned around and looked at an elderly man among the serfs. You have long planted glowing mushrooms for my father. Now, I am appointing you as the head of Magic Medicine Ton, responsible for managing the serfs and planting glowing mushrooms well. Rudy was a serf craftsman bestowed to Russell by the Baron. Though labeled a craftsman, he was essentially a serf who knew how to cultivate magic potions. Upon hearing this, Rudy couldn't help expressing his joy. Rest assured, Master, Red-Nosed Rudy will definitely cultivate the finest glowing mushrooms for you. Having appointed the head of Magic Medicine Ton, Russell wasted no time and dashed towards another measured plot of farmland. The farmland was planted with wheat, but this did not prevent Russell from reclaiming it, officially replacing it with a magic potion field of long rain blossoms and planting a long rain blossom fungus that bloomed with small bird-like blue flowers in the middle of the wheat field. Starting tomorrow, Hans, Rudy, you must arrange for the new serfs to join Magic Medicine Ton and then harvest these wheat crops. Under the guidance of these technicians, seed the long rain blossoms for me, covering 150 acres of land. The wheat seedlings that had not yet grown would not go to waste. After harvesting, they could be used as silage to feed cattle and sheep. Wuyao Snake Manor did not rear cattle or sheep. Previously, Alfalfa Hamlet was specifically responsible for growing forage and transporting it to other estates with livestock. Russell now planned to rear some cattle and sheep himself in the future, so there was no need to send it elsewhere. As for the time being, this alfalfa was just right for feeding war horses. A moment later, in another field across the river, Russell placed down the third coriander fungus, officially completing the arrangement of the fungi. By then, the sky had completely darkened. Russell wasn't heartless enough to let the serfs like Hans go home to eat, but had specially ordered the kitchen in the manor's guest house to make plenty of bread. One could hardly contemplate the white bread made from fine wheat flour. Butler Morris could only distribute to each of the busy serfs a piece of hard black bread mixed from wheat bran, barley flour, bean powder, and grass seeds. The bread was coarse and sour. Praise the Lord. You are as generous as a great dragon, Hans said with a wide grin as he received a piece of black bread the size of a hollow brick. Unlike the soft white bread, this black bread was compact, and such a piece was at least enough for his entire family to have dinner. The serfs left the guest house, thanking profusely and chewing on their black bread. Russell, along with Charles and Eric, went to the dining room on the second floor to enjoy a dinner with beer and roast meat. As for his 4-night attendants, they were currently stationed at Magical Medicine Ton, each guarding a fungus. The newly planted fungi needed to absorb nutrients urgently. Being attacked or nibbled would cause great harm to the fungi and severely affect the growth of the magic potion. Morris, send more roast meat to John and the others, Russell ordered. As you wish, my lord. Butler Morris responded promptly, hurrying to the kitchen to convey Russell's command. Oh, heavens! Exclaimed Mrs. Moore, the chef wearing an apron with sleeves rolled up, in a shrill voice. The Lord is enormously generous, bread and roast meat. The serfs of the manor are blessed to death. It takes several lifetimes to meet such a lord. She then shouted at Barbara, a kitchen maid washing pots. Silly girl, how many times must I tell you to check the roast? It's still roasting, not ready yet, Mrs. Moore, Barbara replied. Heavens, I asked you to check the roaster, and you've learned to talk back to me. Mrs. Moore fumed, hands on her hips. Seeing bags of flour turn into bread for those stinky serfs upsets me enough. Don't you start annoying me, too. Barbara reluctantly wiped her hands and rushed to the roaster. I'm watching it, Mrs. Moore. After pacing by the table for a moment, Mrs. Moore called out again, Mrs. Brown, did you bring back the cheese? I still need to make pudding for dessert for the Lord. Here it comes, running, Mrs. Brown replied, hurrying over. Sorry I have so much to do, Mrs. Moore's tone softened, and she put on a smile. "I can only ask you to help." Mrs. Brown quickly said, "That's not an issue. Butler Morris arranged for me to help out in the kitchen. Treat me like a kitchen maid, freely command me." While stirring the cheese, Mrs. Moore remarked, "You and Mr. Brown must have had a leisurely and relaxing time before, alone in the guest house. Now that the Lord has arrived, the guest house is bustling, but there's endless work every day. It was always necessary to clean the entire guest house without a moment of laziness. Now there are more people and more conversation. It's better than before," Mrs. Brown replied as she took over Barbara's task, donning gloves and preparing to wash pots in the sink. Before touching the water, she quickly raised her hands to her chin, whispering a quick prayer, "Praise the Lord." After enjoying dinner, Russell decided to personally head to Magic Medicine Ton to keep watch through the night, ensuring that the 3 cordyceps could safely make it through their first night. "Russell, as a lord you are too diligent, but in fact there is no need for such tension," Charles said, unable to understand. With Tom the other armed knights on night watch, and Eric joining them, there won't be any mistakes. Russell smiled. "I understand, Mr. Charles, but I have made up my mind." Seeing Russell's determination, Charles could only spread his hands helplessly. "Of course, you are the Lord. All is as you wish. Mr. Charles, you stay in the manor's guest house. There's no need for you to come along. Is that all right?" "There is nothing wrong with it. You're the civil officer of the territory." Russell didn't require Charles to join him in keeping watch through the night, understanding the difference between civil and military roles. Charles's job was to help him manage the territory, so he didn't need him to stay up late as well. Moreover, Russell wasn't truly going to keep watch just for the sake of it. He had other plans in mind. Charles, moved, bowed deeply. "Russell, I truly see the shadow of Lord Baron in you. You have completely inherited the excellent qualities of the Fluorescent Fungi family. May great dragon watch over you. You will surely become an excellent lord in the future." "May great dragon watch over me. I will strive to be an excellent lord." Russell too knew how to speak formally. After all, a nice sedan chair is carried by everyone. As for whether the shadow flame great dragon of the ducal family could watch over this place, that was not important. "Eric, take good care of Russell, and stay vigilant at night." Charles also instructed Eric with a few words, showing his deep concern for Russell. Eric really wanted to roll his eyes, but in the end just responded in a muffled voice, "Of course." Tents, campfires, sleeping bags. Next to the thickest birch tree in the birch forest, Russell chose to camp here for the night, with Night Attendant Jack squatting beside him. Though it was called Night Watch, he had only come here to sleep. It was truly Eric and the 4 night attendants who needed to stand watch all night. "Jack, if there is any rustling of leaves or grass, remember to call me." "Yes." Yawning, turning over, Russell peacefully lay down in his sleeping bag, beginning his night watch in the birch forest. In a daze, his consciousness descended once more into the desolate and gloomy environment. Undoubtedly, he had entered a new, gloomy dreamland, devoid of the line-drawn castle and the line-drawn guest house of the manor. This time, the gloomy dreamland was situated amidst a forest outlined in lines. Before the little dream dragon made an appearance, Russell's view of the gloomy dreamland was completely silent and pitch black, with no light present at all. "Ga." The little dream dragon arrived as expected. Once Russell mounted the little dream dragon, it was like flipping the switch for the gloomy dreamland, and suddenly 3 bright lights rose within the line-drawn forest. Russell could easily distinguish. This light on the tree must be from the Uguangsun mushroom bug's cordyceps. That one pacing about is Jack, and over there, the glow must be from my side sword, the green ceramic sword. Especially this emerald, it's so bright. The green ceramic sword was a birthday gift from the Baron to Russell 2 years ago. Its main body was ceramic, forged from clay nourished by the clay dragon and fired in a kiln. Additionally, a swordsmith master was commissioned to carve a slot and inlay an emerald that had the effect of channeling battle chi, which is why it was named the green ceramic sword. The name might not be very refined, but its value was quite substantial, with just the emerald alone being quite valuable. It's strange, I could see the magic power light emitted by my side sword but not the magic power light from my own body. Does this mean I'm no longer in the sleeping bag, but rather my real body has entered this gloomy dreamland? Russell could not understand. He still remembered when he lived in Fluorescent Castle. On the very day he had crossed over, feeling unwell and going to sleep early, he wandered aimlessly while riding the little dream dragon. Then he saw his mother Meryl, who had quietly entered the room and sat by his bed for a long while. If his real body had entered the gloomy dreamland at that time, Meryl would have definitely noticed the anomaly, but apparently Meryl saw him sleeping soundly. This meant that he was indeed just dreaming, and his real body didn't enter the gloomy dreamland. Looking down at his cartoonish self, Russell gave up on finding an answer for now, believing he'd eventually discover it as he slowly explored. There's so little light. Apart from 3 bright spots, Russell saw nothing but darkness in the forest. Eric and the others were probably beyond the bounds of the gloomy dreamland, so he couldn't see the magical light they were emitting. Take off, little dream dragon. Gah! Centering around his tent, the gloomy dreamland included a part of the birch forest and the glowing river, and he and the dragon flew through this patch of woods, slowly searching for any unusual light, especially the dim kind. Sadly, they found none, so Russell rode the little dream dragon to the riverbank, hoping to get lucky and find another clam that could bear pearls. But after searching, he still found nothing. No gain at all. Ice cream, Russell said as he patted the little dream dragon's big head, deciding to call the little dream dragon ice cream from now on. He remembered that before he crossed over, he was flattened by a dump truck while eating dream dragon ice cream. It must have been fate. He figured the heavens gave him a little dream dragon as a divine favor to compensate for the unfairness. After all, back on Earth, he was about to finish paying off his mortgage and live a good life. God, the little dream dragon twisted its head 180 degrees, not understanding the name, ice cream, gaga. What's all the ga for? Russell yawned, not sure why he could still yawn and feel sleepy in a dream. Gah, let's go back, you little silly, he said. Gaga. The human and dragon flew back to the tent, with Russell planning to wait until the little dream dragon got tired and then automatically dispel the gloomy dreamland. However, the little dream dragon started flying circles around the thickest birch tree and kept making continuous ga-ga noises, seemingly trying to indicate something. Dummy, that's the fluorescent mushroom cordyceps I planted. Gaga. The little dream dragon continued circling the birch tree, not understanding what Russell was trying to say. Its dim-witted behavior was so irritating that Russell felt like slapping it. But as the little dream dragon kept making its circles, Russell gradually realized he may have misunderstood its intent. The little dream dragon wasn't focusing on the fluorescent mushroom cordyceps, but on the tree itself, the thickest birch of all. Stop, stop, stop. No more circling. Russell grabbed the dragon's horn, and with some effort, he managed to get the little dream dragon to stop. He got close to the birch tree and inspected it carefully from the roots upwards. And then, about 3 meters up from the ground on the tree trunk, Russell noticed a glow so faint it was almost imperceptible. The shine from the fluorescent mushroom cordyceps had drawn too much attention, so much so that he never considered the possibility of the birch tree itself emitting light. The birch tree is glowing like something is being nurtured within its trunk. Could it be spirit insects? Russell suddenly felt a surge of excitement. Great dragons, bipedal flying dragons, elves, magic potion, all forces originated from the earth. And now, naturally, the birch tree was soaking up the earth's energy, fostering a new, magical being of magic power, spirit insects. The birch tree might be nurturing spirit insects, which undoubtedly brought a sudden happiness to Russell, yet also a great pressure. It's not unheard of for sprites to be bred in the wild, but it is extremely rare. The reason for this isn't that plants and mushrooms in the wild cannot draw on the earth's power. Rather, it's because the power of the earth is ultimately sparse, and without the enhancement of kin sprites, relying on plants and mushrooms to themselves absorb nutrients and successfully breed sprites is incredibly difficult. Most likely, due to insufficient supply of the earth's power, it would end in miscarriage. This tree, can it really give birth to birch spirit insects? Looking at the dim glow emanating from the tree trunk, Russell desperately recalled the memories of his past self, trying to find a way to help the birch tree. For what he had learned from his past life, sprites have been in the view of humans for at least 4,000 years. How to use sprites to plant magic potions has become quite adept. How to use magic potions, in turn, to cultivate new sprites, a mature plan has also been devised. But how to improve the breeding of wild sprites remains a great unsolved mystery, and people don't even know how to look for wild sprites. After all, whether plants or mushrooms will breed sprites is random without any fixed pattern to follow. Tonight, Russell encountered the thickest birch tree, which was nurturing a sprite, but this doesn't mean that the thickest, tallest birch tree will definitely give birth to sprites. And just because it is nurturing doesn't mean it will surely succeed. Perhaps the shortest, most slender birch tree might also breed a sprite and have a higher chance of success compared to the thicker, taller ones. Thus, methods like fertilizing, watering, weeding, and pest control have no effect on the breeding of sprites. Otherwise, with thousands of years of human agricultural history, we would have cultivated countless crop and fruit tree sprites, happily farming away. Ice cream, do you have a method? With no solutions in mind, Russell could only idly ask the little dream dragon, without high expectations. However, the next moment, the little dream dragon turned its head to glance at Russell, snorted 2 puffs of hot air from its nostrils, looking very disdainful. Then, it turned back, aimed at the birch tree trunk, opened its finely toothed mouth, and whooshed out a breath of dragon's breath even thinner than mist. A magical scene thus occurred. The extremely dim light of the birch tree, upon receiving the dragon's breath, began to warm up as if it had come to life. And it even gained a rhythmic breathing pulse, its light pulsing bright and dim. With each pulse, the brightness increased a little bit more. Gaga, having done all this, the little dream dragon again turned its head to look askance at Russell. Although Russell couldn't be sure what exactly the little dream dragon's breath had done to the birch tree, nor how it stimulated the magic power within, this didn't prevent him from guessing that this breath of the dragon was absolutely crucial for the breeding of the spirit insects. Well done, ice cream, he vigorously rubbed the little dream dragon's big head. Gaga, the little dream dragon shook its head, then directly shook Russell off, and with a flap of its wings, it left Russell's side. It was tired, just one breath of a dragon. Russell only managed to entertain this half-thought before his consciousness faded and he plunged into chaos. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The rooster at a distant serf's house issued a loud crow. Russell in the tent stretched out his arm from the sleeping bag, flexed his whole body for a wonderfully comfy stretch, and greeted the marvelous morning. Ever since I got ice cream, I haven't had a bad night's sleep. He fetched the pocket watch he carried from under the pillow of his sleeping bag and checked the time. It was 6:30 in the morning. He lifted the tent's flap. The sunlight had already evenly scattered throughout the birch forest. Jack, the somewhat confused night attendant, was leaning against a birch tree, nodding off like a pecking chicken, only to be startled awake by the noise. "Ah, sir, go to the Manners Annex to wash your face, have some breakfast, and then get some good sleep," Russell instructed, expanding his chest. "I'm not tired," Jack lied, his eyes red. Russell simply repeated, "Go." Jack bowed and took his leave. Understood. Left alone, Russell carefully observed the birch trees. Since the part that bore the spirit insects was over 3 meters high, he couldn't see anything clearly from the ground, but he had a strong feeling that this particular birch spirit insect would successfully be nurtured. The 4th spirit insect, I never thought the 4th one would come so soon. Russell's heart grew warmer as he looked up for a while. This was only his 2nd night living at Wuyao Snake Manor. If he changed his camping spot every night and initiated the gloomy dreamland at different locations, did that mean he could invite the little dream dragon to breathe out dragon breath on all the potential spirit insects throughout his territory, leading to their successful nurturing? Brilliant! The more he thought about it, the more excited he became, until Butler Morris came with 2 male and 2 female servants, bringing him toiletries as well as breakfast. "Sir, are you going to continue to stand guard here?" "I plan to watch over the caterpillar fungus," Russell replied casually. Since he was the one in charge of his own land, he didn't need to explain his actions to anyone else. With the servant's help, he brushed his teeth and washed his face with the clear water from the glowing river, then ate a simple breakfast. After lingering by the birch tree for a bit and confirming there was nothing abnormal, he handed the caterpillar fungus over to the surf technician who had rushed over to take care of it, then went to inspect the other caterpillar fungus. The rainflower caterpillar fungus and the dill caterpillar fungus had already taken root, greedily absorbing the power from beneath the earth. The serfs planting wheat and beans nearby had begun to harvest the not yet mature sprouts under the lead of the serf supervisor. After the harvest, it would be time to plant the rainflowers and dills. The weather's getting better by the day. When the ice age ends, the warm season begins. Planting the magic potion now, at this time, it will grow quickly without delaying the harvest. Hans, hunchbacked, came up to Russell's side. "Have you ever grown magic potion? I used to grow it in town. Speaking of which, I, Hans, am also a surf technician. It was only after Lord Baron sent me to Wuyao Snake Manor to be the overseer that I put aside growing magic potion," Hans said, reminiscing about the past as he unconsciously reached for his waist. There hung a starch-covered pipe. Without cigarettes or cigars, people here who wanted to smoke either used a pipe or chewed tobacco leaves directly. Suddenly remembering something, Hans hurriedly hung the pipe back. "Sorry, sir." Almost gave into the craving. "It's okay. Smoke if you want to," Russell said casually. He didn't think a serf smoking in front of him was an act of defiance against his noble authority, even though he didn't like smoking himself. He also didn't like secondhand smoke. This was, after all, the wilderness. One couldn't inhale much secondhand smoke, and besides, with battle chi nourishing the body, even if one smoked all day, it was impossible to develop lung cancer. Knights with battle chi rarely got sick, as the chi was more miraculous than any elixir. In the end, Hans didn't dare to light his pipe in front of Russell, instead doing his best to please him. As Russell inspected the field ridges, he asked, "Hans, you've lived at Wuyao Snake Manor for a long time. What do you think should be the first issue to address in order to develop the manor?" "Ah, sir, Hans is but a foreman. Having Hans whip the serfs and urge them to work that I am adept at." Upon hearing Russell's question, Hans couldn't help but smile bitterly. But to ask Hans to develop the manor, truly, I am at a loss. "Lord, you are our leader, the great luminescent mycelium bloodline. You will surely lead us to better days." Facing Hans's flattery, Russell could only shake his head helplessly. Times had changed, and indeed it was a bit challenging to harness the initiative of servants and serfs. He thus changed his approach. "Let's put it this way, Hans. You've lived here quite a while. Do you think there are any shortcomings? Or for you, what is the most inconvenient aspect of living on the manor? Like, are the roads good? Is there a lack of food?" When it came to the development of Wuyao Snake Manor, Russell naturally held great ambitions. The future blueprint could indeed be planned, colorful, and various, but he still had not decided on the first step to take. It felt like everything needed development. Yet it was like a blank sheet of paper. With so many places to draw, he didn't know where to place the first stroke. Hans had always managed Wuyao Snake Manor, and Russell wanted to hear his suggestions. Sneakily glancing at the young and handsome lord, Hans hesitated, uncertain if he should offer suggestions to the lord. Although he was the manor's foreman, when you came down to it, he was merely a servant by the lord's side. A servant is to do whatever the lord commands. Giving suggestions was not his place, but rather that of someone like Lord Charles or Mr. Eric. But seeing the serious expression on Russell's face, warmth swelled in Hans's heart. In the young lord, he saw hope as bright as the rising sun. It was like 20 years ago when he saw the Lord Baron in the fields, just as spirited. This was the legacy between nobles. Even though the Lord Baron seemed a bit plainer in appearance, not as handsome as Lord Russell now. "Just speak whatever comes to mind. This is merely a casual chat," Russell offered an encouraging glance. Hans smiled somewhat ingratiatingly. "Sir, if a mill could be built within the manor, I think It would make grinding flour more convenient for the serfs. Otherwise, they always have to travel far to the town to grind grain and often have to wait in line. A mill, Russell nodded. The staple food in Glowing Valley is flour, primarily bread, with widespread cultivation of wheat, barley, rye, oats, and other cereals. Flour isn't very easy to store, so the serfs need to carry their grain to be ground into flour only when they need to bake bread, which is virtually all year round. The mills in Glowing Valley are mostly concentrated in the town. From Wee Owl Snake Manor to the town, it takes over 2 hours by horse, and even longer on foot. That's a good suggestion, Hans. I will consider it. Ah, praise be to the Lord. All serfs will be grateful for your generosity and kindness. Hans's flattery rolled off his tongue easily. Russell accepted the praise as his due. He was indeed considering the welfare of his subjects. Before long, Charles rode over. My Lord Russell, when you are not keeping watch over the caterpillar fungi, you are inspecting the fields. There is no noble lord more diligent than you. The great dragon watches. The Duke should invite you to take charge of the court. If the Shadow Flame Dragon truly watched me, the Duke should ask me to be the chief minister, Russell joked. Who could disagree? Mr. Charles, your timing is perfect. I plan to build a mill in the manor. Do you think the glowing river nearby is suitable for a watermill? About that, from the manor's annex to the birch forest, the stretch of the glowing river is almost still obviously unsuitable. Downstream, near the Echo Water River Cavern, the flow is quite rapid, but it feels unsafe. Russell asked, will the freemen from the cavern attack the mill? Certainly, those wretches who can't even fill their bellies are always thinking about crossing into the manor to steal. They will certainly not spare the mill. Then we can only build a windmill. Russell turned and asked Hans, where in the manor is the wind strongest and preferably blowing all year round? Hans replied, the windiest place is definitely around Alfalfa Hamlet, especially the slopes near Curved Blade Mountain, where the wind is always howling. The Glowing Valley lies between two mountains in a basin-like terrain. The continuous mountains to the west are Curved Blade Mountain. Although not very tall, they resemble an outward curved blade of a knife, protecting the western boundary of the Glowing Valley. The snow and ice are also blocked by Curved Blade Mountain. Then let's find a place in Alfalfa Hamlet to build a windmill mill. Russell did not hesitate and made the decision on the spot. Charles stroked his chin. Russell, building a windmill mill will cost quite a bit of money. The watermill cannot be built, and the animal-powered mill is inefficient. To meet the needs of the entire manor's livelihood, at least one windmill mill must be constructed, Russell said. Otherwise, the serfs will only be able to grind flour in the town. The Glowing Valley is too long and narrow, with a great distance between north and south. It could take a serf an entire day to travel to the town and back. A serious waste of time. Once the windmill mill is built, the time saved, Russell had it all planned out, can be completely devoted to serving the Lord, building a better home together. No one can defy the Lord's decision. The moment Russell decided to build the windmill mill, it became a part of Wee Owl Snake Manor. Hans, I need to recruit 100 workers to construct the windmill mill. Tell the serfs they will be provided with 2 meals a day, and they don't need to bring their own food. Russell was not harsh with the serfs, but wasn't generous enough to pay them wages either. Most lords summoned serfs to serve without pay, and the serfs even had to bring their own food. Hans exclaimed, you are a truly generous noble. Praise the great dragon. May its radiant blessing protect you, sir. You will surely become a great dragon knight. Mr. Charles, I need you to go to the town and contact the master craftsmen who know how to build windmill mills, to hire them to oversee the construction of the windmill mill. That's a small matter. Charles chuckled. To serve the Fluorescent Fungi family, even without providing meals, masons and carpenters would jump at the chance. Not only meals, but I'll also pay them. There's no need for that, Russell. They would work for anyone. Charles didn't understand. It was clear that no money needed to be spent, so why go out of the way to pay the craftsmen, most of whom were serfs of the Fluorescent Fungi family? No matter, it's just a little compensation, Russell didn't explain. His principles were always somewhat mismatched with those of the native nobility. The moral bottom line definitely had to be raised a bit. "You really are generous," Charles shrugged. It wasn't his money being spent after all. The horses in the manor stable were in luck, for the wheat seedlings, barley seedlings, and lentil sprouts harvested from Magic Medicine Ton, still fragrant with dew, were brought by the servants to feed them. The cultivation work of the 3 kinds of magic plants was methodically spread out under the leadership of the serf overseers and technicians. The first batch of workers at the windmill mill was also easily assembled by Hans. Therefore, as the lord of the manor, Russell didn't have much to do, and he had plenty of spare time to inspect his territory. He didn't go to Fluorescent Castle for a rushed lunch at noon. Going there and back would take 4 hours, and even though he could practice on the way, it was a waste of time, so Russell sent a night attendant to deliver a message, deciding to return to Fluorescent Castle once a week. The time saved was all devoted to practicing Radiant swordsmanship technique. Talent may be lacking, but determination fills the gap. After drinking a magic elixir, feeling his battle chi start to boil, Russell immediately immersed himself completely, repeatedly swinging his fine steel longsword, using the movements of battle chi martial skills to carve open his meridians. Just one technique of chopping and stabbing, honed 1,000 times over. Russell not only didn't feel any tedium, but the more he practiced, the more he felt in tune. As if by mastering this one technique, he could wield enough power to cleave the heavens in two and even reach the concept where one sword could sever all things. It seems in my past life, I was a martial genius hindered by the blessings of a 996 schedule. Whoosh! The fine steel longsword was firmly chopped down 3 feet in front of him, maintaining a 75-degree angle with his body. A drop of sweat from his hair, flung out by the inertia of the forward motion, landed precisely on the tip of the sword and was split in 2 by the blade. Nose, wings, cheeks, all covered in beads of sweat. Yet Russell didn't feel the slightest bit tired, nor could he feel any fatigue in his body. Practicing uninteresting content might make one feel more tired as they practice, but when it comes to content of interest, there's always a feeling that there isn't enough time. "Sir, you should rest now." Eric approached him. "Did you sleep well, Mr. Eric?" Russell didn't stop, continuing to swing his fine steel longsword. "I will stop after another quarter of an hour." "I've caught up on sleep," Eric replied, and then drew his fine steel longsword, practicing on his own. He was already a great knight, his meridians fully integrated, unable to increase his battle chi any further. The next step was to make a contract with a fantasy beast to break through the shackles of his current realm. "Mr. Eric, have you mastered your battle chi chains?" Russell asked. 1,000 hammers, 100 refinements. "So, you're only missing a fantasy beast now," said Russell. "Making a contract with a fantasy beast is as difficult as ascending to the heavens, sir," Eric said as he fiercely thrust out his sword, sending a 3-meter-long sword chi flying. Making a contract with a fantasy beast is very difficult, but obtaining a fantasy beast is even harder. Without Russell's help, he might only remain a great knight for the rest of his life, unable to touch the realm of a phantom beast knight. He turned his gaze to Russell, full of expectations. Russell simply said, "There will be an opportunity." As the Lord, he naturally understood what Eric was thinking. A great knight who had reached the peak of battle chi and was willing to serve him had 2 goals in mind. One was to be granted the title of Lord and enter the ranks of the nobility. The other was to contract with a fantasy beast and advance to become a phantom beast knight. But he wouldn't make promises lightly. Some promises need not be made. They will come naturally when the time is right. A quarter of an hour later, Russell stopped his practice, and a male servant immediately handed him a towel to wipe his sweat, while a maid brought refreshing tea to quench his thirst. "Sir, would you like me to arrange a bath for you?" Morris asked. "No need. If I take a bath every time I sweat, I'll end up bathing 3 or 4 times a day." Russell wasn't that fastidious. In a blink of an eye, night fell. After dinner and a bath, Russell chose to camp out at Magic Medicine Ton again, under the pretext of keeping watch over the spirit insects through the night. No one could persuade him. He could only be left to toil away. However, what Russell found quite perplexing was that this night he was unable to enter the gloomy dreamland and slept through till dawn. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, John." Greeting the night attendant casually, Russell walked to the edge of the glowing river and scooped up some water to wash his face. When the disturbed water calmed and he saw the handsome face reflected, he furrowed his brows deeply, puzzled. The gloomy dreamland didn't appear. What's happening? Since his transmigration, he had entered the gloomy dreamland every night, exploring it with the little dream dragon. In the last few days, especially with the help of the gloomy dreamland, he had discovered pearls and clams and spirit insects gestated by the birch trees, and Russell had begun to understand and acknowledge his own golden touch. Who could have known? Suddenly, his golden touch was gone. Could it really be gone? Russell's face grew more and more grave. The value of the gloomy dreamland was immeasurable. Having the gloomy dreamland meant having boundless resources. Just the discovery of wild spirit insects alone could propel him to the pinnacle of life. Without the gloomy dreamland, Russell couldn't guarantee he would surely take off. After all, in this magical world, what restricted development was not one's vision, but dragons and elves. Without dragons, without elves, the wealth of knowledge a transmigrated person might have was of no avail. Moreover, in his previous life, Russell was but an ordinary man. Or is it that the little dream dragon has left me? That shouldn't be the case, though. We've been getting along well these past few days, and I haven't offended it, have I? The gloomy dreamland originated from the little dream dragon. This much was certain, although Russell did not know the roots of the little dream dragon. Whether it was his last ice cream, named Dream Dragon, he had eaten before his previous life ended, or some unimaginable great dragon from the dream realm, remained unknown. Could it be? Russell thought of a possibility. The little dream dragon took a breath and then got tired. In previous encounters within the gloomy dreamland, the little dream dragon had also breathed out, but it seemed that the breath, faint like mist, was taken back by the dragon. Only this time, in order to help the birch tree gestate spirit insects, the little dream dragon's dragon breath was not reabsorbed. If that's the case, isn't the little dream dragon too fragile? No, that's not right. The little dream dragon has limbs and wings. These are the great dragon's characteristics. It should breathe dragon flame. Dragon breath is the exhalation of a bipedal flying dragon, whereas dragon flame is that of a great dragon. Bipedal flying dragons, as the name suggests, have just one pair of strong hind legs with the front limbs transformed into wings. Great dragons have 4 limbs and a separate pair of wings. The little dream dragon, except for its smaller size, perfectly matched the characteristics of a great dragon, but Russell also didn't dare to confirm what it actually was. In any case, Russell lifted his head and rallied his spirits. Don't be anxious. Let's wait and see if the little dream dragon will appear tonight. Suppressing his worries, he once again took on the demeanor of a dignified noble lord. He busied himself overseeing his territory, urging the cultivation of magic potions at Magic Medicine Ton, receiving stonemasons and carpenters from the town, discussing the blueprints for the windmill mill. When night fell, Russell still chose to camp at Magic Medicine Ton, then hoped for the little dream dragon to bring the gloomy dreamland with it. However, after one night, the little dream dragon still did not appear. Does a dragon flame require so long to recover? Ice cream? Russell looked up and sighed, somewhat dispirited. The only piece of good news was that on the thickest birch tree, 3 meters up, a bud resembling a branch sprouted. Upon a detailed sensing, one could feel the rhythmic magic power within it, like a small life gently breathing. The spirit insect was about to be nurtured into form.